Chapter 135. Sandy asked one of his mates to take out a clean hide from the cave and lay it on the ground. Bode and another male placed Adri on the hide. Leah placed the stone pot at the side and used his large tail to wrap Gu Mingming behind him to protect her. He then squatted down to check on Adri's injuries. Gu Mingming knew that Leah was protecting her because he knew she was afraid of the smell of blood. She felt warmth in her heart, but she was still worried about Adali. After all, he was a beast and Sandy's partner. Although Leah said that Adri's injury had nothing to do with her, Gu Mingming still felt guilty. So for the first time she resisted the temptation of her big tail and climbed onto Lee's back. She lay on Lee's shoulder and peeked out her little head to examine Adali's wound with Leah. If we just leave it like this, it will definitely be infected. Gu Mingming muttered softly. Leah tilted his head and asked Gu Mingming, then what do you think we should do? Although Gu Mingming kept saying that what happened to Barit was just common sense and could not be considered as reviving the dead, but to Leah and everyone else, it was already a miraculous feat. Gu Mingming's extreme general knowledge was enough to crush many witch doctors in the beast world. So Leah still valued Gu Mingming's opinion, taking 10,000 steps back even if Gu Mingming was just joking. So what? As long as Gu Mingming was happy, he would still listen to Gu Mingming's opinion and do as she said, much less Adali. As long as she was happy. Gu Mingming was very happy that Leah would listen to her seriously. This made her feel that she was very important. But if she really opened her mouth, she was afraid that she would be displaying her slight skill in front of Leah, the witch doctor. It would not be good if she gave the wrong information and caused Adali's life to be in danger. Leah could tell that Gu Mingming was doubtful, so he used his large tail to gently sweep her back and comforted her. It's all right, just say what you think. I'll decide whether it's feasible or not. Gu Mingming then relaxed and nodded. For this kind of injury, we will first disinfect the wound and reduce the inflammation before stitching it up to prevent infection. But there's no alcohol or needles? Tell me what it is. I'll make it for you. Leah thought that the pot could be replaced by something else just like the pot. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, wine can be brewed using fermented grains, but it is definitely not something that can be done in 1 or 2 days. Sewing needles? As Gu Mingming spoke, she suddenly saw the huge pile of fish at the entrance of Sandy's cave. Those should be the ingredients that Bode originally wanted to practice roasting fish with. Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. She pointed at the largest one and said, the suture needle can be replaced by fish bones. Without waiting for Gu Mingming to say anything, Bode had already carried the biggest fish over. Yep, if I don't want to be ordered around by a female other than Sandy, the best way is to get things done before she opens her mouth. In this way he would be doing it on his own initiative and not being ordered around by other females. If Gu Mingming knew what Bode was thinking, she would definitely say, congratulations, you've learned how to answer first. It was a pity that Gu Mingming only cared about choosing a suitable bone from the fish bones and did not have the time to tease Bode. This is good. After searching for a long time, Gu Mingming finally found a fish bone with a suitable thickness and curved angle. She handed it to Leah and said, Daddy Leah, make a small hole at this position but don't damage the other parts, is that alright? Aside from the topic, on the first day of PK, please leave more comments, it's best if it's related to the plot. Those who have tickets, please hand over your tickets. Those who don't have tickets, please hand over your tickets tomorrow. Those who haven't bookmarked it, please click to bookmark it. Those who have bookmarked it, please keep it. Those who want to reward Jean Eyre and Gu Mingming, you can start your performance now. Chapter 136. Leah looked at the fish bone in Gu Mingming's hand and used the most precise control of his fingernails to carve a tiny hole in the shape of a rice grain at the spot Gu Mingming pointed at. Gu Mingming looked at it again and again before nodding her head in satisfaction. Yes, just like this. With the needle, Gu Mingming lowered her head and looked around. She saw the stone pot that Leah had placed at the side and said to Sandy, Sandy, ask your partner to start a fire and find 3 tree trunks as thick as this one and some sturdier tree vines. Alright, I need Elvis's help. Can he come over too? Sandy replied, of course. After getting Sandy's permission, Gu Mingming turned to Elvis and shouted, Leader, you can come over now. Sandy has agreed. Actually, with Elvis's hearing, Gu Mingming really did not need to shout like that because he had already heard their conversation just now. However, it felt different to be called over by Gu Mingming. Elvis walked in front of Gu Mingming and asked, What can I do for you? Gu Mingming replied, I remember there were many animal organs thrown at the stream just now. Leader, can you help me ask if anyone still wants those organs? If they don't want them, then help me take one of the intestines back. they still want it? I'll go get it for you. Elvis interrupted Gu Mengmeng. What a joke. Would anyone dare to not give what his Xiaoming wanted? Gu Mengmeng nodded. She suddenly thought of something and pulled Elvis, who was about to leave. She turned to Sandy and asked, "What is your Adali's original form?" Sandy replied, "He's the same as me. He's from the bear tribe." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Leader, I remember a few people ate bear's intestines just now. Can you see if there are any bear intestines left? If you have a choice, take a bear's intestine." Elvis did not ask why and just nodded his head in agreement. He then kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and turned to walk towards the stream. Leah was a little jealous and said, "Everyone has something to do, but I'm the only one with nothing to do?" Gu Mingming laughed and said, "You're the chief surgeon today. Your hands are going to be operated on later. How can you do other chores? If he injures his hand, who's going to suture Adali later?" "Me." Leah was a little surprised. "Of course it's you. If it wasn't you, would it be me?" Gu Mingming looked at Li's barely visible nod and smiled bitterly. "I only have theoretical knowledge and lack practical experience. Besides, I'm a coward, I don't dare to make a move." Leah used his large tail to encircle Gu Mingming back into his arms. He swayed his tail from time to time and said, "All right, I will listen to Gu Mingming. I'll do whatever Mingming asks me to do." What a glib tongue. Gu Mingming chided with a smile, but she was not angry. Instead, she felt ripples in her heart. Bode and the other two males brought the tree branches that Gu Mingming wanted in a short while and started a fire. Gu Mingming instructed Bode to tie the 3 thick tree branches together with tree vines at an angle of about 120 degrees. The 3 tree branches were evenly distributed and became a simple frame. Gu Mingming used the tree vines to hang the stone pot up. She originally wanted to hang it above the fire to boil a pot of water to disinfect Adali. Unfortunately, she miscalculated the weight of the stone pot. The moment she hung it up, the tree vines snapped with a clang. The stone pot really fell down and smashed into the fire, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Aside from the topic, a few days ago, a reader suggested to me to let Sandy give birth to a son named Winnie. I thought about it for a while. Yeah, that's good. It obviously solved the problem of my name being useless. So among Sandy's 6 partners, I arranged a bear tribe. Chapter 137. Li's reaction was extremely fast. He scooped Gu Mingming back and locked her in his arms. He turned around and used his back to block all the sparks. Gu Mingming was indeed shocked. She shrunk into Li's arms and did not dare to move. After a long while, she stretched her neck out to take a look. But the moment she moved, she heard Leah say, "Mingming." Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. She lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. But she lifted her eyes to peek at Li's expression. As expected, Leah could not even maintain his smile. He held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders and adjusted to her height. He stared straight into her eyes and said, "Do you know how scared I was just now? If you were hurt even a little, it would be more painful than having my heart gouged out." Gu Mingming pursed her lips and said, "I didn't know that pot was so heavy, huh?" Leah did not buy it. He was unusually stern and did not leave any room for negotiation. "I know my mistake." Gu Mingming lowered her head and maintained a good attitude. "What did you do wrong?" Leah did not intend to let her off just like that. This little female, if he did not teach her a lesson, she would really dare to do anything. "That branch is too thin. I should have asked Bode and the rest to find a thick one from the start. Oh, that's right, we should not have set up a pot. We should have built a stove so that it would not fall." The more Gu Mingming said, the more she felt that it made sense. She nodded and said, Yes, we should have built a stove." Gu Mingming. Leah was really furious. What was this little female thinking in her head? Couldn't she just leave this matter to the males to think of a solution? That pot was so heavy. If it had landed on her, the consequences would be unimaginable. But she was still thinking about building a stove. Did she not know that she almost lost her life just now? "Oh, fire. Daddy Leah, don't be angry. I really know my mistake. I will never carry a stone pot again." Gu Mingming tried to please him. "What else?" Leah finally calmed down after getting her assurance. Gu Mingming blinked her big eyes and tilted her head to look at Leah in confusion. Leah was so angry that he clenched his teeth. He really wanted to pry open her little head and see what kind of weird things were inside. Unfortunately, the hand that was raised high did not bear to hurt her at all. It only touched her eyebrows and said, "You have to get used to relying on me. In the future, let me do whatever you need me to do. Don't put yourself in danger and make me worry. Do you hear me?" Oh, Daddy Leah is right. I will listen to Daddy Leah. Gu Mingming hugged Lee's arm and shook it with all her might, acting like a spoiled child. Daddy Leah, don't be angry, I will treat myself as a severely handicapped person in the future, the kind that can't take care of myself and ask you to do everything. That's a good boy. Leah loved it when Gu Mingming acted coquettishly and shamelessly in front of him. He did not know why, but he felt that the left side of his chest was filled to the brim. That sense of fullness made him feel as if he was sitting on the clouds, floating so fast that it didn't seem real. But will you annoy me? What if Daddy Leah hates me? Gu Mingming pouted and asked. If you are worried that I will have a change of heart, why don't you settle on me as soon as possible? When your estrus is over, we will mate. This way I will be yours for life. If I have a change of heart, the beast deity will take my life for you. How about that? Aside from the topic, OOPK is so nerve-wracking. Babies, have you voted yet? Chapter 138. When Elvis came back with 2 pieces of bear intestines, Sandy had already asked Bode and the rest to build a stove and boil water. Elvis was a little surprised at the matter of boiling water, but the smell of the thing in his hands was too strong, so he did not dare to get close to Gu Mingming. He just stood at a distance and asked, Xiaoming, do you still want this? Gu Mingming turned around and saw Elvis carrying a piece of intestine that was as thick as her arm. It was bloody and dripping with yellow liquid, and the stench almost made Gu Mingming vomit. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. But thinking of the heavily injured Adali, she clenched her teeth and said, Yes, this is very important. Elvis's sense of smell was much more sensitive than Gu Mingming's. The smell of the intestines almost suffocated him. But because it was what Gu Mingming wanted, he carried it along the way and did not throw it away. But Elvis was not willing to pass this smelly thing to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming also did not have the intention to wash it herself. She was kind, but not to the extent of being a saint. Hence, he turned around and said to Bode, Bode, go and wash that bear's intestines for me. Clean them inside and out. Bode slammed the table and said, Why me again? Gu Mingming spread her hands and said, Because I can only remember your name. Bode thought to himself, What the F*** K? But he was helpless. Gu Mingming had a strong backing and he could not afford to offend her. Not to mention Elvis and Leah, who were already emitting a strong aura. Just Sandy's unhappy gaze was enough to send a chill down Bode's spine. Resigned to his fate, he pinched his nose and walked to Elvis. He took over the bear intestines from his hands bitterly and transformed into a leopard to fly downstream to wash this stupid thing. Elvis looked at his own hands and said, I'm going out for a while, I'll be back in a while. All right. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis had a sharp nose. The smell that was still lingering on his hands must have made him break down. He must be going to wash his hands. Sandy moved closer to Gu Mingming and smiled meaningfully. Gu Mingming is really the #1 beauty of Saint Nazir. Even Elvis is used to reporting to you, he even needs your approval to wash his hands. Gu Mingming did not know whether to laugh or cry. You're thinking the wrong way. Leader is just more of a gentleman. Sandy nodded perfunctorily and asked, Then what do we do next? Gu Mingming used mud to extinguish the fire and waited for the water to cool to a suitable temperature before asking Sandy's partner to help carry him to Adali's side. She used a small leaf to scoop some water to clean Adali's wounds, then scooped some water to carefully help Leah wash his hands. When the green-faced Bode returned, he washed the bear intestines again with warm water and made Leah use his fingernails to tear the bear intestines into thin strips that could barely pass through the fishbone needles. When everything was ready, Gu Mingming handed the fishbone needle to Leah. Daddy Leah, I'll leave the rest to you. Leah took over the fishbone needle but only stared straight at Gu Mingming. He had no intention to proceed to the next step. Gu Mingming thought that Leah did not know what to do, so she guided him again. Daddy Leah, don't be nervous. Just sew up the 2 sides of the wound and don't let the wound open like this. I believe in you, you can definitely do it. Do your best, but Leah twitched his mouth. My hands will be dirty if I do that. Gu Mingming nodded. It will definitely be stained with blood. You just have to wash it. Leah said, But you're the one who washed my hands. How can I dirty them for other males? Gu Mingming, aside from the topic. Chapter 139. Under Gu Mingming's repeated coaxing and guarantee that after Leah was done with Adali's wound, Gu Mingming would kiss him and wash his hands clean. Only then did Leah reluctantly start stitching Adali's wound. She had to admit that Leah was really awesome in some professional fields. The tenacity of the raw gut suture was not good, but he was able to stitch up Adali's wound with ingenious angles and strength without any experience. Adri was a real man. Without anesthesia, he didn't even let out a groan. He clenched his teeth and stared at Sandy, as if there was nothing he couldn't endure as long as he could see Sandy. The entire process only took about 3 minutes. When Leah placed the last stitch perfectly, Gu Mingming's heart finally relaxed. To be honest, Gu Mingming felt her heart ache just by looking at him. But he was her best friend's man after all. She still had to avoid arousing suspicion. So Gu Mingming told Sandy, "Hurry and go take a look at Adali. I will go with Leah to the stream to wash my hands and come back later." All right. Sandy did not know how to take care of an injured person, so she just followed Gu Mingming's instructions and sat beside Adali. She stared at Adali, who was forcing himself to smile, and gently wiped the sweat off his face. Leah transformed into a snow fox and carried Gu Mingming on his back. They came to the upstream of the stream, and without a word, they directly rushed into the water. Plop plop plop, Gu Mingming and Leah fell into the water separately. Gu Mingming stood up with a chuckle and wiped the water off her face. She saw Leah standing in the water completely naked. The stream's water barely reached his waistline, and the 2 mermaid lines were faintly discernible, causing one's imagination to run wild. His broad shoulders and narrow waist were graceful. He was not as muscular as Elvis and did not look as strong and powerful as Elvis, making others not dare to underestimate him. However, he had a sense of strong and healthy beauty. His skin was translucent and fair like jade, but did not have a hint of femininity. Gu Mingming could always sense a demonic or immortal aura from him, but she had never confused his gender. His silver-white long hair was casually draped behind him, glistening with a watery light due to the stream. Under the refraction of the sunlight, there seemed to be a rainbow halo. Daddy, Leah was too much of a foul. I really want to pounce. What should I do? Leah stood at his original spot, his eyes filled with unparalleled charm. He raised his slender and bony hands from the water, creating countless ripples. With his palm facing upwards, his fingers naturally curved inwards while his index finger extended forward. Then he hooked it lightly and called out in a hoarse voice, "Ming Ming, come over and help me wash." Puff, Gu Mingming could only feel something flowing out from her nose. It was sweet and hot. Gu Mingming touched it with the back of her hand. Damn, it was bleeding again. Li's reaction was even faster than Gu Mingming's. The water did not seem to pose any resistance to him as he glided to Gu Mingming's front. He wrapped one arm around Gu Mingming's waist and the other gently lifted her little chin to tilt her head up. He frowned and his gaze was filled with heartache. His crimson thin lips slowly moved downwards, pressing against Gu Mingming's lips. Thump, thump. Gu Mingming felt that her heart was about to jump out and her nose was bleeding more and more profusely. First kiss? Was it going to be sacrificed here? Under such a situation where her nose was bleeding all over? Other people's first kiss was very romantic. Why was her first kiss so pathetic? But why was there a vague sense of anticipation in her heart? Aside from the topic, in reply to QQ Reader, love is like a song, the string breaks and the person scatters. Thank you baby for your suggestion, I will try my best to speed up the pace. As for feelings, you said that it was too cruel to treat the orcs with the modern concept of love. This point cannot be denied. But baby, please think about our Gu Mingming. After all, she had just transmigrated a few days ago. It would be too difficult for her to accept the settings of the venerable female of the beast world, polygamy and having to get married immediately after her period. She had to go through an adaptation process. Using an old saying, the most generous love is to give you time. If a man is not even willing to spend some time on you, what right does he have to say that he loves you? Chapter 140. Just as Gu Mingming was about to close her eyes, Leah stuck out his pink tongue and licked Gu Mingming's nose lightly. That crimson blood was like cinnabar on his lips, making him look extremely seductive. Leah used his index finger to wipe the blood from Gu Mingming's nose into his mouth, then looked at Gu Mingming with misty eyes and said, "Just as I thought, you are very delicious." Gu Mingming quivered and woke up from the crimson romantic bubbles. She pouted and asked, "Daddy Leah, don't tell me you want to eat me up?" Leah said thoughtfully, "That's a good suggestion." Gu Mingming looked up and whimpered, "Daddy Leah, please don't eat me." However, Leah smiled and licked her little nose again. This time, his movements were delicate and slow. Gu Mingming's entire attention was focused on the tip of her nose. She could clearly feel every minute movement of Lee's, and even clearly saw him sucking on her little nose at the end. Licking his lips with his red tongue, Li's bewitching face stopped inches away from Gu Mingming. Li's thumb caressed Gu Mingming's lips, his long and narrow eyes were filled with unconcealed desire. Be my partner or food, which would you choose? Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with desire. I don't choose either. Gu Mingming said as she started to struggle. But her little strength was not worth mentioning in front of Leah. Leah held onto Gu Mingming's waist with one hand and supported the back of her head with the other, fixing her firmly in his arms. That seductive face slowly moved to Gu Mingming's ear and he whispered in her ear in an intimate tone, "Why don't I choose for you?" Li's warm breath sprayed onto Gu Mingming's ear and she felt her heart palpitate. Damn, she was concerned about her life and death and she was actually feeling amorous. No. Gu Mingming stuttered as she rejected. But Leah did not have any intention of letting go of her. Instead, he lowered his body slightly and both of their bodies sank into the stream. Unknowingly, Leah had already carried Gu Mingming to a very deep position. The water did not even reach Li's chest and Gu Mingming's feet could not reach the ground at all. In order not to choke, Gu Mingming could only wrap her arms tightly around Li's neck and whimper. Leah looked at Gu Mingming who was in his arms and said seductively, "It's all right, it won't hurt. I will eat you up so that we can fuse together and never be separated again." Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tears. "What? Daddy Leah, don't do this, don't. Gu Mingming struggled with all her might but it was useless. Seeing Leah revealing his sharp teeth and slowly approaching Gu Mingming's slender, snow-white neck, Gu Mingming was so scared that her face turned pale and she even forgot how to cry. Was he going to die in Daddy Lee's mouth? The play ends here? Did that beast deity bring me here from the swimming pool just to add food for Daddy Leah? Sob, I must have a fake father. Gu Mingming's imagination was running wild when she felt a warm sensation on her neck. It was wet and slightly painful but it did not feel like the pain of being pierced by teeth. This feeling was a little weird. Gu Mingming tried her best to use the corner of her eyes to look at Leah who was lying on her neck and called out, "Daddy? Leah?" Aside from the topic, babes, remember to vote for me every day. Chapter 141. A numb feeling came from her neck. It was a very unfamiliar feeling, but Gu Mingming knew that it was not the feeling of her throat being bitten off. She could feel her heart beating inexplicably. She was flustered but she did not resist and even felt a little enjoyment. After a long while, Leah finally let go of her neck. Then he looked at the red mark on Gu Mingming's neck as if he was admiring a piece of art. So pretty. Leah caressed the mark he left on Gu Mingming's neck. Gu Mingming touched her own neck. There was no wound. She lowered her head and looked at her neck from the reflection in the water. Then her face heated up and instantly turned red. "Daddy Leah." Gu Mingming covered her neck shyly and said angrily, "Why did you randomly plant strawberries on other people's bodies?" Leah did not take it to heart. He pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "You look especially good when you are about to cry from being bullied." Gu Mingming's nose was bleeding. She covered her neck with her little hand and raised her red face. She snorted but could not say anything to refute him. She was being flirted. Gu Mingming was very clear that she was definitely being flirted with by Leah. "I'm the only one who can see this delicious look of yours, okay?" Leah held onto Gu Mingming's wrist gently and slowly pulled her little hand down to place it on his chest. His gaze was full of sorrow. Every word that came out of his thin red lips made Gu Mingming's heart feel like it was an open shell being touched by a gentle hand. That tender and sensitive nerve sent a strange stimulation, making Gu Mingming's blood boil and her face burn up. Gu Mingming could not care less about the hickey on her neck. She only used her still mobile hand to pat her face with water to cool down her burning face. Li's smile looked so unreal under the refraction of sunlight and water. It was as beautiful as poppies on the other side of the ocean, exuding a fatal temptation. Li's lips slowly approached Gu Mingming again. This time, it landed firmly on her lips. He did not intrude nor did he move away. He just kissed Gu Mingming with his lips sticking to hers, using this method to convey his appreciation and adoration. After a long while, Leah slowly moved his lips away and asked with a suggestive tone, "Regarding kissing you without permission, should I apologize or confess?" Gu Mingming's mind froze. Why did these words sound so familiar? After being stunned for a moment, Gu Mingming finally recalled that this was the line she had told Sandy in Descendants of the Sun. However, Elvis had forcefully imagined a Chiang Yao drama and paired her and Yu Si Jin together, so the story only ended at this point. Gu Mingming pouted. She was a little unhappy that Leah had to copy someone else's confession and was not even willing to think of a confession himself. She mumbled, "Why are you copying him?" Leah held the back of Gu Mingming's head gently and kissed her forehead. Then he replied, "As long as it's something you like, I'm willing to learn. Even if I have to destroy myself and become someone else's shadow in your eyes, I'm willing." Her heart was stabbed harshly. Gu Mingming was filled with guilt for her complaints just now. One of her hands was pressed against his chest by Leah and had not released it. Gu Mingming just went with the flow and laid on Lee's chest. She pressed the side of her face against his bare chest and listened to his strong heartbeat. Once, twice, mating was too heavy a burden. Gu Mingming knew that she could not make such a promise. But maybe dating would not be bad. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xian Bao and Qin Xiaoyu for your tips. I have truly received all of your encouragement. Also, I don't want to waste time explaining which is better between NPCs and 1v1. Everyone has different views on love and values. We don't have to force everyone to agree with us, right? In order to not cause more misunderstandings, I won't reply to NPCs and 1v1 messages anymore. Chapter 142. Confess. Gu Mingming said softly with a blushing face. The corners of Lee's lips curled upwards slightly. Something in his heart seemed to have calmed down and spread throughout his entire body. Leah changed his posture and used his forearm to support Gu Mingming's but, hugging her like he was carrying a child. Using his other hand to lift her chin, he looked at Gu Mingming with eyes that could drown a person to death and said, "In my name, I swear to the beast deity that I will pledge my loyalty to you for the rest of my life. From today onwards, you are my God, my life, my everything." Gu Mingming's face was burning hot and she felt all the blood in her body rushing to her head. Pursing her lips that were dry from the heat, Gu Mingming said hesitantly, "What I mean is, I can date you. I'm not ready to mate." Gu Mingming had already explained her views on love to Leah long ago and Leah remembered the dating process that Gu Mingming said to him. Leah was already very satisfied to be able to transition from friend to lover in such a short time. He did not want to force Gu Mingming. No matter how badly he wanted to mate with Gu Mingming and become the rightful person by her side, he had to respect Gu Mingming's feelings first. How could his woman be wronged? "Tell me, what kind of relationship is it?" Leah approached Gu Mingming's lips slowly and stopped at a fingertip's distance. He asked in a slightly hoarse voice, "Is it a relationship where I can kiss you whenever I want to?" Gu Mingming knew very well what would happen if she nodded her head slightly. Her heart was beating wildly and she replied with a single sound in anticipation and shyness, "Yeah." Leah lifted her little chin and gently brought her lips into his mouth. This time, Lee's tongue entered Gu Mingming's mouth nimbly, tasting the sweetness in her mouth wantonly and greedily. Until Gu Mingming was almost suffocating, Leah then released her reluctantly. Both of their gazes were in a daze and Leah could clearly feel the solid throbbing in his left chest. He knew very well what this familiar yet strange feeling meant. Leah could not explain it clearly, but he was once again certain that he could not let go of this female Gu Mingming in this lifetime. After all, it was almost winter and the stream water was still somewhat cold. Leah was afraid that Gu Mingming would catch a cold, so he did not stay in the water for too long. He did not know where he had lost the beast skin dress when he transformed and he was not in the mood to look for it, so he just carried Gu Mingming up to the shore. He knew clearly that Elvis had already caught up to them and he had clean clothes for Gu Mingming to change into. In other words, Elvis must have seen everything just now. Leah and Elvis hoped that they could successfully separate Gu Mingming's feelings for him before Eugene arrived, or even directly replace him. They had the same idea and did not need to discuss it verbally. They had such a tacit understanding. This was also the reason why Elvis did not show himself even though he was already nearby. But this did not mean that Elvis could tolerate Leah threatening his status as the first partner, and Leah indeed did not have that intention. So Leah planned to carry Gu Mingming to Elvis's side. Firstly, he wanted to get some clean clothes for Gu Mingming to change into so that she would not catch a cold. Secondly, he wanted to take the opportunity to explain to Elvis. Out of topic. In the middle of PK, little babies, remember to vote for me in QQ bookstore. Chapter 143. But Lee's thought made Gu Mingming very conflicted. Damn it, Leah was naked. She did not feel anything when he was in the water just now, but now that she was out, the scene was too erotic and Gu Mingming's nosebleed was about to go out of control again. Daddy Leah. Gu Mingming hugged Lee's neck and stopped Lee's actions of going ashore. Leah stopped in his tracks and smiled dotingly. You're still calling me Daddy Leah? Gu Mingming was speechless. Damn it, calling her own boyfriend Daddy, why did she feel even more embarrassed than before? Between lovers, what kind of address should there be? Leah was clearly asking sincerely, but to Gu Mingming, it sounded like he was asking a question that he already knew the answer to. The blush on Gu Mingming's face did not subside at all. Holding back the surging emotions in her heart, Gu Mingming said shyly, Then what should I call you? Lele? Or Yaya? Leah heard it and obviously did not like it, so he shook his head and said, Just call me Daddy, it sounds much better. Gu Mingming deeply felt that Leah was purposely teasing her. But facing Lee's face, Gu Mingming could not bring herself to be angry. She just bashfully punched Lee's chest lightly. To show that she was angry, Gu Mingming directly called Lee's name, without any form of address. Leah, are you planning to go back like this? Gu Mingming's little eyes peeked downwards secretly. Since Leah was her boyfriend now, it should not be too much for her to take a look. Leah followed Gu Mingming's line of sight and looked down at his half-hidden body in the water. He asked with a sincere face, What's wrong? You will be seen by others like this. Gu Mingming felt that she had overestimated her psychological endurance. She dared to say anything when she was joking normally, but it was her first time seeing a real gun right in front of her. She only took a quick glance and quickly looked away. But even so, Gu Mingming still felt her heart jumping to her throat before she could see anything clearly. Leah thought for a while and tried to understand Gu Mingming's words. But he really could not figure out what the problem was. Wasn't everyone like this? Gu Mingming looked at the 3 words I don't understand, clearly written on Lee's face and instantly felt embarrassed. She thought to herself, does this beast deity not care about anything else besides whether a couple gets a divorce or not? You don't even bother with the least bit of weathering? But thinking was just thinking. Gu Mingming could not be bothered to complain about the beast deity's anti-image from the neighborhood committee. She was only thinking about her blue friend and could not let others see his nude picture. She thought for a moment and pretended to take off her clothes. As she slowly untied her belt, she said, My clothes are also covered in fish scales and it smells like hell. Now that it's wet, it's not comfortable to wear. I might as well take it off too. Then we can run back to Sandy's place naked and let the tribesmen see us naked. Leah, on the other hand, tapped Gu Mingming's little nose with a faint smile and said, Elvis is already waiting over there with clean clothes. With me and him releasing our aura together, even mosquitoes would not dare to come close. After you've changed your clothes, we'll go to Sandy's. That way we won't be seen naked. Chapter 144. As Leah said that, Elvis had already walked out from the shade of the tree. Gu Mingming was like a child who had done something wrong. She lowered her head and did not dare to look into Elvis's eyes. As for Elvis wanting to be her godmother, she already knew that it was a misunderstanding. But why did she not dare to face Elvis? Gu Mingming did not want to think too much and did not dare to think too much. She just lowered her head and twisted her fingers. You will get sick easily wearing wet clothes, change? Elvis reached out and took Gu Mingming from Lee's hands. He then said to Leah, Transform into your original form before coming out. She doesn't want others to see you like this. Leah nodded and did not ask why. He transformed into a fox and lightly shook off the water on his body. His fur became fluffy and he did not look like a drowned rat at all. It was as if he had used a hairdryer to dry his hair in the blink of an eye. TSK, even the heavens would look at one's appearance. Gu Mingming thought about how long she usually had to dry her hair and deeply understood the favoritism of the heavens. However, her blue friend was really good-looking. No matter if he was in human or beast form, he was so good-looking that one could not take their eyes off him. Elvis carried Gu Mingming to a place that was sheltered from the wind and then started to remove her clothes. Gu Mingming crossed her arms in front of her chest and said, No need, no need. I can change myself. Elvis's hand paused in midair and he stared at Gu Mingming with his deep gaze for a long time. Finally, he slowly lowered his hand and turned around indifferently, saying, I will guard you from the side. Call me if you need help. All right. Gu Mingming felt a tinge of guilt. She was the one who provoked Elvis without knowing the situation. Ever since they met by the lake, everything she did was enough to cause him to misunderstand. Although it was unintentional, now that she knew that the beast world's view on love was very different from hers, there was no reason for her to let Elvis continue to misunderstand. Moreover, since she had already decided to date Leah, she could not give Elvis that kind of illusory hope. So, Gu Mingming called out while changing her dress, Elvis, are you still there? I have always been here. Elvis replied. Gu Mingming said, Leah confessed to me and I agreed. Elvis remained silent for a long while before slowly replying, Gu Mingming said, where I come from, a female can only be with a male. Since I've agreed to date Leah, I won't have any other romantic partners. Elvis's voice was still indifferent as if he did not care but asked carefully, then, what about you Jean? Gu Mingming smiled helplessly and shook her head. Is this joke not over yet? Didn't I tell you that this is just a story and there is no such person? Even if there is, his female is called Kang Moyan and not Gu Mingming. Silence. Another long period of silence. Just when Gu Mingming almost thought that Elvis had left, Elvis finally asked, then, what about me? This time, it was Gu Mingming's turn to be at a loss. Her hand that was fastening the shoulder strap suddenly stopped, not knowing how to answer this question. Time seemed to have stopped and Gu Mingming's mind kept repeating Elvis's sentence, what about me? This was a simple question made up of 3 words, but she did not know how to answer. Elvis turned around and walked over from behind the rock. He took over the little shoulder strap from Gu Mingming's hands and fastened it for her. He said while fastening it, you are now in Saint Nazaire, you just need to follow the rules here. Gu Mingming still did not say a word. She just looked up at Elvis's backlit face. Chapter 145. Elvis didn't wait for Gu Mingming's reply and just carried the neatly dressed Gu Mingming into his arms with one hand while using the other to carry her old clothes. These were supposed to be thrown away but she said she wanted to wash them before using them and he agreed to it. Leah transformed into a snow fox as promised and waited for them not far away. He heard the conversation between Gu Mingming and Elvis. It was undeniable that he felt a sense of beauty in his heart. The only one, such an unattainable word, yet Gu Mingming said she wanted to give it to him? In this beast world, which male could resist such a temptation? However, Leah was very clear that he could not protect Gu Mingming by himself. When Gu Mingming's identity was exposed one day, the beast world would definitely be in chaos. By then, how could he protect her while facing the enemies? But even if it could not be realized, Leah felt that it was enough with Gu Mingming's words. Let Leah carry me. Gu Mingming felt a little awkward, she did not know how to face Elvis now. Elvis's spine obviously stiffened but he did not say anything and just placed Gu Mingming on Lee's back. Then he said, you guys go to Sandy's place first, I will go back and dig a cave for Xiaomeng to store her old clothes. I will go and fetch you guys later. Leah replied to Elvis using beast language but Gu Mingming naturally did not understand. But Elvis just smiled bitterly and nodded before turning to leave. When Leah and Gu Mingming returned to Sandy's cave, Adali actually woke up miraculously. His wounds had not healed but he looked much better. Unless it was the final radiance of a setting sun, he would definitely not die like this. Sandy saw Gu Mingming returning and immediately went up to her. She held Gu Mingming's little hand and said, Gu Mingming, you are too magical. Look, Adali looks much better now. At this rate he will be able to recover in no time. Gu Mingming smiled embarrassedly and said, this is Lee's credit, I just moved my mouth. But Sandy did not think so. She looked at Leah, who went to ask Bode for a piece of beast skin to wrap around his waist after putting Gu Mingming down. She lowered her voice and said, Leah has never treated an injury like this before, this is obviously your idea. So, Adri's survival is all thanks to you. Mimicking Sandy, Gu Mingming lowered her voice and asked in a breathless voice, why are we speaking in such a soft voice? Sandy gave Gu Mingming a you're so stupid look and said, if Leah hears this I'm dead meat. Gu Mingming said helplessly, he can still hear you like this. Sandy paused and looked at Leah in fear. She bit her lower lip and could not say a word. Then she suddenly pulled Gu Mingming over and said, Gu Mingming, tell Leah not to be angry. Gu Mingming laughed out loud. My Leah is not so petty. Sandy and Leah were stunned. My Leah? These 4 words were clearly enough to quell any of Lee's anger. Moreover, since Sandy was Gu Mingming's good friend, Leah would definitely not hold it against her. Just like how no matter how Gu Mingming ordered Bode around, he would not flare up at Gu Mingming no matter how unwilling he was. Just like how Leah was inwardly coquettish, Sandy could not hold it in any longer. She raised her voice and asked in surprise, Gu Mingming, you mean you are going to mate with Leah, right? This way you will always stay in Saint Nazaire. Even if Yu Sijin comes to look for you, you will not leave with him, right? Aside from the topic, babies, it's hard to say about the stockpiling of chapters. Although I have been working hard, I can't release a lot of chapters every day. So, from the 5th to the 7th, I will release more chapters than the editor requested and maintain a rhythm of 5 chapters every day. Tomorrow, which is the last day of the PK, on the 8th, I will release all the chapters that I have saved up these few days. It can be considered as a small climax for me to release more chapters. As for how many chapters one can release, I am not sure. Anyway, let's all look forward to it. The last thing I want to say is, there will only be the next PK after this one. If you still want to see Gina release chapters before it is published, please try to support him in these 2 days. Chapter 146. Gu Mingming really did not want to continue the topic of UC Jean anymore. She glanced at a dolly who was lying at the side. His complexion seemed to have improved a lot. Gu Mingming could not help but admire the abnormal recovery ability of the males in the beast world once again. Did he just need to take a bath and he was already out of danger? But he was someone else's male after all. It would cause misunderstandings if she was too concerned about him. Moreover, Gu Mingming blushed and her eyes unknowingly looked at Leah, making eye contact with his long and charming eyes. Gu Mingming smiled and retracted her gaze, but her heart was filled with sweetness. Holding Sandy's hand, Gu Mingming replied, not leaving, I can't bear to leave my precious Sandy. Sandy hugged Gu Mingming's waist and rubbed her face against her chest. Her furry ears tickled Gu Mingming's chin and she could not stop giggling. Alright, I think you were not full just now. I brought the pot over to add more food for you. Really? Adali's condition had stabilized and Sandy's gluttonous nature was revealed once again. Gu Mingming pointed at the stone pot and said, look, I brought the ingredients to eat, how can it be fake? Sandy nodded her head hurriedly and her eyes lit up as she looked at the stone pot. Forgive Sandy for not having seen the world, but in her eyes, this pot had already been bestowed with the light of a divine weapon. Gu Mingming was very agile and did not show any mercy when commanding Bode. She handed over the tasks of gathering firewood and boiling water to Bode while she squatted at the side to deal with the fish. As they were going to roast it for Sandy, Bode had already cleaned the fish's scales and innards. What Gu Mingming needed to do now was to use a sharp small stone to cut the fish into a few large pieces. Then she smashed the ginger Leah gave her and tried to cut it open. When the water in the pot was boiling, Gu Mingming handed the entire fish bone and head to Bode and let him keep stirring while she sat at the side to chat with Sandy. What about me? What should I do? Leah came forward, seemingly unhappy that Gu Mingming had thrown him aside the moment she saw Sandy. How could Gu Mingming ignore him? That pair of big eyes had glanced at him countless times. It was just that they were too shy to be too intimate with each other because there were others around. But since Leah had taken the initiative to send himself to her doorstep, wouldn't it be too unromantic if she didn't get used to it? With that thought, Gu Mingming leaned into Lee's arms and leaned against his chest, saying, of course you're accompanying me. Leah smiled faintly, his gaze gentle. All right. Leah took the initiative to summon his large tail and wrapped it around Gu Mingming. He did not seem to mind that his tail had become Gu Mingming's moving sofa. He only knew that his Ming was in heat. The ground was so cold he definitely could not let her sit on the ground. Gu Mingming had always been fond of Lee's tail and now it was even more justifiable for her to rub it up. If she did not do it now, when would she do it? No matter how slow Sandy was, she could sense the subtle change in the atmosphere between Gu Mingming and Leah. She finally felt relieved this way. Gu Mingming would stay in Saint Nazaire forever, right? They could stay friends forever, right? Chapter 147. When Bode's fish soup was almost done, Gu Mingming then placed the sliced ginger into the pot and waited for the pot to boil before placing the fish meat in to cook. Actually, the food cooked with only ginger and fish was similar to a postpartum meal and could not be considered as a delicacy. The main reason why Gu Mingming's cooking was so popular was because the structure of the delicacies here was too monotonous and lacking. As a result, the fish soup that had been cooked for about 2 hours was so fragrant that it attracted almost everyone in Saint Nazaire. But most of the males still abided by their territorial boundaries and did not step into Sandy's territory. But some females who did not have enough of courting death did not care about that. Nina and another female whose name Gu Mingming could not remember walked in together. Nina took the lead, walking with her head held high, as if she was strolling in her own backyard, while the other female followed behind her like a servant. The two of them walked in front of Gu Mingming, one in front and one at the back. Nina had suffered a few times in Gu Mingming's hands and the wound on her neck was still hurting. She looked around and when she realized that Elvis was not around, her heart calmed down a little. Then she cleared her throat and pointed at Sandy's pot, asking, "Hey lowly half-orc female, what are you doing?" Sandy stood up uneasily and replied while clasping her hands, "No, it's not me, it's Gu Mingming who is cooking." Gu Mingming knew that Sandy was used to being bullied by Nina, so she was quite surprised that she would go against Nina for her. Why would Gu Mingming not protect a friend who did not back down even though she was clearly afraid for her? So, she straightened her back and stood up from Lee's arms, her hand naturally hooking onto Sandy's arm. As she was not as tall as Sandy, Gu Mingming looked like a little bird beside Sandy, just that this little bird was a little domineering. Even before she opened her mouth, Nina's legs had already turned to jelly. Gu Mingming sneered in disdain and said, "Why? Are you here to apologize to a dolly?" "Apologize?" Nina's sharp voice pierced Gu Mingming's eardrums. Gu Mingming dug her ears with her little finger and asked unhappily, "Why, you beat me up and you treat it as if nothing happened? You swaggered over here because you're afraid that I won't be able to find your doorstep for revenge?" Nina was afraid of being beaten up by Gu Mingming, and Elvis had used his actions today to clearly tell her. If she provoked Gu Mingming, he would kill her. Because he was afraid, his aura became weaker. However, Nina had been the first beauty of Saint Nazir for a long time and had been pampered to the point that it had become her instinct. The arrogance that was ingrained in her bones had caused her to have an unwise understanding of herself. She thought if Elvis was not around. Thus, he mustered up his courage and retorted, "Fights between males have always resulted in either death or injury. How can we blame others? He's useless and can't beat my male. Why should I apologize?" Well, as Gu Mingming said, she started rolling up her sleeves. Nina had seen this posture twice and instinctively knew that Gu Mingming was going to hit her again. He was so frightened that he took 2 big steps back, staring at Gu Mingming cautiously. Gu Mingming did not care about her. She pointed at Nina's nose and said, "Since you sent yourself to me, if I don't beat you up today, I would be letting you down." Aside from the topic, some people said that they did not like Sandy's character and that she was too weak. But putting herself in her shoes, she had been bullied since she was an adult. How could it be easy for her to retaliate after such a long time? But it was precisely this weak character that she did not give in when Nina scolded Gu Mingming. So, Sandy was just a soft and cute girl, we can't expect her to be like Gu Mingming, right? Gu Mingming, authorine, come over here and make it clear, what's the difference between you and me? Chapter 148. Gu Mingming was about to rush to Nina again but was lifted up by her waist. Gu Mingming instinctively thought that Elvis was lifting her again. She turned around and was about to complain when she saw Lee's smiling handsome face. Gu Mingming said, "Leah, why are you lifting me too?" Leah, on the other hand, poked her little nose in rebuke. He watched as she moved back and forth in his hands like a cub, hugging onto his hand indignantly as if she wanted to bite him but was reluctant to use any strength. He asked, "What did you promise me again?" Gu Mingming blinked her big eyes and shook her head honestly, completely forgetting what she had said just a moment ago. Leah pointed at the stone pot that was boiling water and raised his eyebrows while looking at Gu Mingming with squinted eyes, as if he was considering how to punish this little rascal who forgot everything after she said it. Gu Mingming followed Lee's hand and looked at the stone pot. After thinking for a long time, she finally remembered that she had casually promised Leah when the stone pot fell just now, something like, let him do everything in the future, treat herself as if she was severely handicapped and could not take care of herself, and so on. Blushing, she cleared her throat and swung into Lee's arms, pouncing on him. Leah caught her steadily and waited for Gu Mingming to order him about female matters for the first time with his eyes full of smiles. Gu Mingming raised her head under Lee's guiding and expectant gaze and pointed at Nina, saying, "Leah, help me teach her a lesson, all right?" "As you wish." Lee's smile bloomed like a poppy at a speed visible to the naked eye. His voice was full of charm, like a smooth melody played by a cello. These 4 simple words made Gu Mingming's maiden heart explode more than any other situation. Her heart was like a little beast crying piteously for food, wishing that she could hold up a support sign and shout, "Leah is so handsome, his boyfriend power is at the max." Leah placed Gu Mingming beside Sandy. He felt that other than his own embrace, Sandy's side was Gu Mingming's favorite place. After settling Gu Mingming, who looked like a fangirl, Leah turned to face Nina. He was clearly smiling, but it sent a chill down Nina's spine. It was even more horrifying than when Elvis was pinching her neck. Taking 2 steps back, Nina said, Leah, what are you doing?" "I am Saint Nazir's precious female." "Indeed, you are the precious female of Saint Nazir." Li's voice was slow as if he was narrating, but Meng Meng is my female. To me she's a million times more precious than you. As he spoke, Li's fingernails grew out one by one. Gu Mingming could only see his back view, but she could clearly feel his murderous aura. Not to mention Nina, who was facing him directly. She was so scared that her legs turned to jelly and she sat on the ground. She did not even have the strength to escape and was just like a dog. This time Gu Mingming did not stop Leah. Firstly, she believed that Leah had a sense of propriety. No matter how scary he acted, he would not really take Nina's life. Secondly, Adali's injuries were too severe and he almost lost his life. If she did not teach Nina a memorable lesson, Gu Mingming felt that she would not be able to raise her head in front of Sandy in the future. After all, no matter what, he was involved in this matter. As for the third point, Gu Mingming glanced over and had long seen the restless males at the borders of Sandy's territory. The moment Leah launched his attack, they could no longer control themselves and rushed in together. They were already standing in front of Nina, blocking her way. Gu Mingming's eyes darted around. Aside from the topic, sharing a new article from a friend. Actually, it was a modern romance article covered in a layer of fantasy. Sweet pampering textbook, welcome to read it. The Domineering Little Wife of Pluto by Invisible Stars. This was the story of a useless cultivator who became a supreme queen. This was the story of Pluto's endless pampering of his domineering little wife. Regarding the female lead, Dongfang Xan, the daughter of a 10,000-year-old zombie king and a human, the second generation of the little princess who was doted on by all. She was a red-level student from the first school of the underworld. At the same time, she was the useless cultivator in his eyes, a troublemaker, the little tyrant of the underworld. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. The useless cultivator finally became a queen. Let's see how she saves the world. Regarding the male lead, Yi Lin, the supreme king of the underworld. It was said that she could choose any of the treasures in his mansion of Pluto, and he even sent himself out as her 1-month-old present. Emerging as a dark horse, he successfully captured his little wife. Chapter 149. The appearance of Nina's partners seemed to be exactly what Leah wanted. Flexing his wrists, Leah said, "You guys trespassed into someone else's territory, which is equivalent to disregarding Saint Nazir's rules. As a witch doctor, it's hard for me to pretend that I didn't see it." Nina's partners looked at each other. There seemed to be something wrong with Li's words, but nothing seemed wrong at the same time. Based on their brains, it was impossible for them to refute Li's words. Moreover, it was a fact that they trespassed into someone else's territory. There was no way for them to argue. Hence, one of Nina's partners crawled under Li's feet. This was the way wild beasts expressed obedience. They did not want to and did not dare to become enemies with Leah. "We just want to bring Nina away. We have no intention of trespassing into Sandy's territory." Leah. "Oh no, great witch doctor, please forgive us." Leah did not seem to buy Nina's partner's cowardice. He just played with his sharp claws nonchalantly, smiling faintly. "Bring Nina away? That won't do," my Meng Meng said. "She wants me to teach her a lesson." Nina's partner was shocked. He stared at Leah with widened eyes. "Nina is a female." Li's smile deepened. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating, but it was as if it was soaked in poison, making people afraid. "Yeah, Nina is a female." Leah twisted his wrist, grabbing onto Nina's partner who was blocking in front of him. He slowly raised his arm until the male's feet could no longer touch the ground. He kept kicking in the air but had no ability to retaliate. Meanwhile, Leah maintained his God-loving smile, saying calmly, "But you guys are not." With that, Leah tossed the male who was almost dead to the side. At the same time, he transformed into a snow fox and leaped into the air. He stepped on the stomach of the male who had been tossed into the air and leaped into the air. Then he fought with Nina's partners who had already transformed into their original forms. Forgive Gu Mingming for not seeing anything clearly because it was really too fast. About 3 seconds? Gu Mingming blinked, regained her composure and walked stiffly to Li's side. Seeing Li's clean hands and the 7 to 8 males lying by his feet, it would be an understatement to say that she was dumbfounded. Those who had transformed into beasts were obviously unable to get up. Each of them only had one wound on their bodies. It wasn't fatal, but it was surprisingly uniform. All the wounds were on the abdomen. Regardless of the depth, the shape was exactly the same as Adri's wound. At least from Gu Mingming's point of view, it was as though the wound had been copied and pasted. It was definitely produced by an assembly line. Leah knew that Gu Mingming was afraid of blood, so he chose to transform into his beast form to fight. Firstly, it was to end the battle quickly, and secondly, after transforming, the original stains on his body would be removed along with the transformation, leaving no traces behind. So when Gu Mingming walked over, there was not a single trace of blood on him. He was still as white and flawless as jade. Holding on to Gu Mingming's little hand, Leah asked with a face full of tenderness, "Is Gu Mingming satisfied with this lesson? If you want, I can also leave the same scar on Nina's body." Gu Mingming hurriedly shook her head. Actually, her so-called lesson was just to leave him with a bloody nose and a swollen face. She had never thought of Leah being so heavy-handed. But now that things had come to this, she could not say that Leah was wrong. After all, Adri was also injured by them to this extent. Forget it, I think they have learned their lesson and will not dare to bully Sandy in the future. Leah maintained his faint smile, but when his gaze did not meet Gu Mingming's, his smile was so cold that it was frightening. "You should be glad that you are a member of Saint Nazir, or else." Nina's partners, who could not transform back into human form, let out a low whimper in their beast form. That was their submission under the suppression of absolute power. They were very clear that if they were not a member of Saint Nazir, Lee's claw would have directly dug out their hearts, and not just scratched their abdomens. Digression. To be honest, I still haven't found the place where I PK in the book town, but when I scanned the book town's reward area, I was really shocked. I always knew that you all loved me, but I didn't expect you all to love me so much. Thank you Doryman, Hanshi Jianlu, New Day, and our Shin baby for their rewards. I'm so touched, my babies, thank you all. Also, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's Great Banyan Tree Huahua. Chapter 150. My Gu Ming doesn't like the smell of blood. Do you guys want to scram, or do you want me to do it? Before Leah could finish his sentence, a few of Nina's partners who did not dare to rush out just now tried to walk in from the boundary of Sandy's territory. They stopped after 2 steps and looked at Leah. Seeing that Leah just turned around and carried Gu Mingming back to the stove, ignoring them, they mustered up their courage to rush in and drag their injured family members away. Meanwhile, Nina, who was already scared out of her wits, could only allow one of her partners to carry her away. Her eyes were filled with shock and daze, as if she could not comprehend what had just happened. After Nina left, Sandy's territory was only left with her family, Gu Mingming, Leah, and that half-orc female who had accompanied Nina over like a maidservant. Gu Mingming looked at the half-orc female and said, "Your master has already left, why aren't you leaving?" That female bit her lower lip and seemed very nervous. She hesitated for a long time before opening her mouth and asking timidly, "Can I stay behind with you guys?" Gu Mingming raised her brows and asked, "Aren't you Nina's friend? It's not suitable for you to stay with us." That female shook her head like a rattled drum and said with misty eyes, "Nina and I are not friends. It's just that she is a complete female and I am just a mere half-orc female like Sandy. If I don't listen to her, I will be bullied by her. I don't want to be bullied anymore. I beg you, let me stay by your side, can you?" Gu Mingming did not know much about the people of Saint Nazir, so she looked at Sandy and asked for her opinion. Sandy tugged at Gu Mingming's hand and looked at her with a slightly pleading gaze. She probably felt a kinship with this half-orc female. Gu Mingming thought that it was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Since she had taken the initiative to show her kindness, why should she reject her? Moreover, although this female had always been by Nina's side, she had not done anything to harm Sandy other than to protect herself. Since Sandy had already begged for mercy, what else could she not agree to? So Gu Mingming stretched out a hand towards the female and said, "Hello, I am Gu Mingming." That female held onto Gu Mingming's hand with both her hands, then knelt down and prostrated on the ground. This posture was exactly the same as when Nina's partner begged Leah for mercy. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She wanted to pull the female up, but realized that she could not support her weight at all. She pulled twice but the female did not budge at all. Gu Mingming asked, "What are you doing? Get up, get up." Leah placed his hand lightly on Gu Mingming's shoulder and smiled sideways. "She is expressing her loyalty to you. You can touch her head and she will get up." The corners of Gu Mingming's lips twitched. Why was making friends like training a dog? What loyalty and disloyalty? But seeing that female sprawled on the ground and refused to get up, Gu Mingming had no choice but to pat her head, accepting her loyalty. That female looked up with a face full of tears. She looked at Gu Mingming gratefully and said, "My name is Maya. From today onwards I am yours." Gu Mingming's temples throbbed. From today onwards I am yours. Why did this sentence sound so awkward? Maya, the relationship between friends is equal. I'm not above you, so you don't have to do this. As Gu Mingming said, she leaned into Li's arms. She looked at Li's side profile and smiled. Moreover, I can't let you be mine. Mine only has him. Aside from the topic, yeah, first of all, I would like to thank the babies in the group who helped me to name myself. I have saved all the names you gave me and they will slowly appear in the novel. Just like Maya today, who will be the next one to give her a new name. Also, I would like to thank my babies, XNU, and Choice in QQ Reading. Chapter 151. Leah enjoyed Gu Mingming's words very much. For the time being, let him enjoy this one and only. Even if it could not last long, this moment would definitely be the happiest day of his life. Leah hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and looked at Maya as if he was looking at a rival in love. What? You want to fight with me too? Maya was shocked. She leaned back and fell on her butt. She looked at Leah in fear and said, No, great witch doctor, I didn't mean it that way. That's good. Leah lifted his head proudly and walked past Maya with Gu Mingming in his arms. His steps were exceptionally coquettish. The fish bones at Bode's side had already been boiled to a milky white color. Even Gu Mingming's appetite was whetted by the smell, not to mention Sandy and Maya. Gu Mingming skipped to the side of the pot and placed the sliced ginger inside. After boiling for a while, she placed the fish inside. After cooking for about 5 minutes, Gu Mingming clapped her hands and exclaimed, Done! She reached out to touch the side and realized that in this miserable beast world, there were no bowls or chopsticks. She could hold a tree branch to eat when she was barbecuing, but was she supposed to hold a stone pot to drink fish soup? Gu Mingming looked around. Leah did not understand but followed her and looked around. He asked, What are you looking for? Gu Mingming roughly described the appearance of the bowl and chopsticks. Leah nodded thoughtfully, then kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and said, I know where to find something similar, I'll go get it for you, wait here. Leah nodded. Yeah. Gu Mingming nodded obediently. Blue friends were really reliable. Sandy and Maya surrounded Gu Mingming on both sides. The 3 little heads were all on top of the pot, drooling as they smelled the aroma. Just when they could not hold it in any longer, Leah finally returned. But when she saw the thing in his hands, Gu Mingming froze on the spot. Leah was holding half a tiger's skull in his left hand. He placed it upside down and sliced it flat from the eye level. Water was still dripping from the 2 furry ears. It was obvious that the considerate Leah had washed it seriously after removing it. But a tiger's head dripping with water was also very scary, alright? And on his right hand, what were those 2 things that looked like tiger ribs? Gu Mingming instinctively took a step back and almost knocked into the stone pot behind her. Leah dashed forward and scooped Gu Mingming's waist with the hand that was holding the tiger bone. She fell into Li's arms. You promised not to let me worry, Leah said sternly. Gu Mingming was so speechless that her teeth were chattering. She stuttered, put down the things in your hands first, we can talk about it. Leah did not understand but did as he was told. Gu Mingming looked at the half a tiger's skull and ribs that Leah had placed at the side. She pulled Leah a few steps to the side before saying, Don't tell me you want me to eat with that thing? Leah looked at Dihu's head and then nodded sincerely. Gu Mingming stumbled and fell into Li's arms. She twisted her body and muttered, Can you not be so curious? That's too scary, I don't dare to use it. Leah suddenly smiled and stroked Gu Mingming's little head that was rubbing against his chest. He comforted her, It's just food, don't be afraid. Gu Mingming wanted to cry but had no tears. She roared in her heart, Can you not say such scary words with that expression of God loving the world? Aside from the topic, regarding the matter between Gu Mingming and Leah, don't worry too much. Li's status as the official CP would not be shaken. Leah and Gu Mingming were at most ambiguous. It was impossible for them to become partners. Leah had more scenes at the moment because Gu Mingming liked him now. Wait till, I can't say it. Just continue watching. You will know when I hide and pretend to be Mr. Automatic Update. Chapter 152. Leah could tell that Gu Mingming was really scared, so he hugged her and said, If you don't like it, then we won't use this. Let me think if there are other similar things. Gu Mingming immediately shook her head. She did not dare to count on Leah to think of a solution, or else who knows what head he would bring over later. Gu Mingming looked around and suddenly had an idea. She pointed at the tree branches that Bode had brought back to make firewood and said, we will use this. Leah followed Gu Mingming's little hand and looked at the tree branches that were no thicker than Gu Mingming's arm with a confused face and asked, "This?" Gu Mingming nodded her head heavily and said, "Yes, yes, yes, this." Gu Mingming ran over as she said and gestured for Leah to help her cut out a branch that was about 10 centimeters thick. Then she dug out the wood core and turned it into a very retro and simple wooden bowl. But the modern wooden bowls were all oiled and this simple one would definitely be permeable and there would be wood shavings if used directly. So, Gu Mingming directly plucked 2 large leaves from the tree and placed them on the bottom of the bowl. Then she used another bowl to fill the bowl with fish meat and soup. Gu Mingming was used to taking care of others and just as she was about to pass the fish soup to Sandy, she was carried away from the pot by Leah and found an empty place to sit down. Leah was still in his half-orc form, using his large tail as a personal sofa for Gu Mingming while he sat cross-legged with one leg bent. His elbow was placed on his bent knee and he looked sideways at Gu Mingming, admiring the way she ate. Gu Mingming used 2 thin tree branches as chopsticks. Although it was not easy to use bent branches, it was still better than tiger ribs. She picked up a piece of fish meat and sent it into her mouth. The texture was dense and sweet. After eating a few roasted meat, this fish meat soup was like a refreshing stream. Gu Mingming used her chopsticks to pick up another piece and sent it to Lee's mouth saying, "Try it, the taste is not bad." Leah placed the tip of his nose in front of the fish meat and smelled it. Then, his lips curled up in his mouth that looked like he was going to eat the fish meat, brushing past Gu Mingming's chopsticks and kissed her lips. This kiss was very light but it messed up the rhythm of Gu Mingming's heartbeat. Everyone was watching. But Leah did not care about how others looked at him. He just looked at Gu Mingming's mouth tenderly and licked his lips. Indeed very delicious. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She lowered her head and sent the fish on her chopsticks into her mouth. She did not dare to look at Lee's eyes and could only eat the food in her bowl secretly. She didn't even know when the food in the bowl was gone, because her ears were filled with the sound of her own heartbeat. Leah took over the empty bowl and asked, "Do you want more?" "I'll help you get a bowl." Gu Mingming shook her head shyly and said, "No need, I'm full." Leah frowned, his heart aching that his Mingming only ate so little every meal. The food that he had spent so much effort to cook ended up in Sandy and Maya's stomachs. After thinking for a while, Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, "But I'm still hungry." Gu Mingming then realized that she had actually finished everything and left nothing for Leah. She hurriedly said, "Then I'll help you get another bowl." Leah pulled Gu Mingming's little hand and said, "I'm the witch doctor of Saint Nazir, how can I snatch food from a female?" Aside from the topic, babes, remember to give me that free ticket. Those who have gifts, please focus on today. Today is the last day for the statistics. After today, gifts won't be counted as results. Then leave a message and ask the babies to move their fingers and cheer for Jean Eyre and Gu Mingming, please. Chapter 153. Gu Mingming looked at Sandy and Maya who were about to fight over those few pieces of fish and said hesitantly, "Then, go get a bowl for yourself and share some with me, alright?" Leah said. Gu Mingming nodded. As a competent girlfriend, she would definitely not let her boyfriend go hungry. So Gu Mingming jumped out from Lee's tail with the bowl in hand and rushed to the pot, snatching a bowl of fish from Sandy and Maya's pincer attack. The steam from the fish shrouded Gu Mingming's little face. From Lee's perspective, she seemed to be the only color in this world. Opening his arms, Leah took the initiative to welcome Gu Mingming who was walking towards him. He kept his tail and hugged her with his body, feeling the wonderful feeling of her in his arms. Gu Mingming seemed to have gotten used to being hugged these few days so she did not resist or feel awkward. She just picked up a piece of fish and blew on it before sending it to Lee's lips. She opened her mouth as if she was feeding a child and said, "Come open your mouth, ah." Leah could not help but smile but used one hand to push the chopsticks back into Gu Mingming's mouth. As Gu Mingming looked at him with her big innocent eyes, he leaned towards her lips again and kissed her little mouth. His nimble tongue minced the fish in Gu Mingming's mouth before releasing her little mouth reluctantly. Before he withdrew, he sucked on her little lilac tongue again. Some saliva dripped down from their parted lips, reflecting the sunlight and looking crystal clear. Gu Mingming's face flushed red. She finally understood what Leah meant by, "Share some with me." So, there was such a way to divide. Gu Mingming instinctively swallowed the fish in her mouth but did not dare to feed Leah a second time. She directly placed the chopsticks in front of Leah and looked away shyly saying, You eat it yourself." Leah loved Gu Mingming's shy look very much, especially her little mouth which always gave off a seductive scent, making him want to taste it again and again. Using his slender and bony fingers to hook Gu Mingming's little chin, Leah said with a pure and innocent face, "I don't know how to use these two tree branches." Gu Mingming stuffed the bowl into Li's hands and ran away as if she was escaping for her life. As she ran, she shouted, "If you don't know how to use chopsticks, use your hands." Looking at Gu Mingming's escaping back view, Li's heart sank. Could it be that he had still pushed her too hard? Although she said she ran away, she didn't go far. She just ran to Sandy and Maya's side. These two little females, who usually did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Nina, were now at loggerheads with each other over a pot of fish, refusing to give in to each other. Gu Mingming walked to the middle and forcibly separated the two of them, saying, "There are plenty of these fish in the stream. If it's not enough, we can just catch another two to cut them up and put everything into the soup. The soup is ready-made and it doesn't take much effort to make. What's there to fight over?" Maya's understanding of Gu Mingming was that Gu Mingming was the one who beat Nina up, and she had always been the one being stepped on by Nina. So towards Gu Mingming she desired and feared her. Now that Gu Mingming had spoken, she naturally did not dare to fight over it. Moreover, they were eating the ingredients found by Sandy's partner. Even if she was a female, she would not dare to snatch the food away from Sandy's partner. So Maya obediently took a step back, then looked at Sandy seriously and asked, "Sandy, can I let Nissan in? I want him to help me catch a few more water shuttles so we can eat together." Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming, "Leah, you have your own hands and feet. Why do you want to snatch the food in my mouth?" "Leah, I was kissing you. You said before, lovers is a relationship where I can kiss you if I want to." "Gu Mingming, you even said you are the witch doctor of Saint Nazir and cannot snatch food from females." "Leah, you are not a female from Saint Nazir, you are my female." Gu Mingming blushed, turned around and ran away. Chapter 154. Sandy nodded her head in agreement. Maya then waved her hand and a wolf leaped in. Gu Mingming still instinctively took a step back, even though this wolf was obviously half the size of Elvis and its color was just a normal gray. After seeing Elvis's original form, this gray wolf looked like the huskies in the neighborhood. But even so, the natural fear humans had towards beasts still made Gu Mingming's heart skip a beat. Leah did not miss Gu Mingming's frightened expression, so when Nissan passed by him, he accidentally kicked him back to his original position. Leah stretched his back and stood up, calling out to Bode, "The females don't have enough food, follow me to help them catch some food." Bode suddenly felt the glory of a leopard's life. He was actually not ordered around by Gu Mingming. He was so happy he did not know why, but he just felt like he could straighten his back. Bode followed behind Leah all the way to the stream. When he passed by Nissan, Leah only gave him a look and Nissan followed behind Leah without any hesitation. Lee's lips moved slightly, but Gu Mingming naturally did not know what he was saying as they were too far apart. But the other males present heard it clearly. Lee's instruction with a devilish smile was, "No one is allowed to show their original form in front of Gu Mingming again." Gu Mingming took advantage of the free time and asked Sandy to order her partners to learn from Leah to make bowls and chopsticks of all sizes using wood. She chose a piece of wood that was as thick as Gu Mingming's waist, dug out the middle and made two small holes in symmetrical areas. Then she tied some vines to it and it became the simplest water bucket. Luckily, the males in the beast world had strong hands-on skills. Although it was not as beautiful as Lee's, it at least had the basic functions. It did not look good, but it was fine as long as it could be used. When Sandy's partners returned with the new tools, Gu Mingming used a bigger bowl to add some water into the pot. Then she used the long chopsticks to stir while humming a tune, waiting for Leah and the rest to return in satisfaction. Sandy, on the other hand, forgot to look at the pot as she stared at Gu Mingming with eyes brimming with love. "Gu Mingming, you're really amazing. You know how to make so many strange but useful things and you can even sing." Gu Mingming grinned. She looked at the cutlery on the floor that could only be destroyed as a defective product in the modern world. She really did not dare to accept Sandy's compliment. However, she was not going to pass on the responsibility of singing. Clearing her throat, Gu Mingming smiled at Sandy. "You like listening to songs?" Sandy nodded as if she was pounding garlic. She clasped her hands in front of her chest and instantly turned into a fangirl. Legend had it that only the mermaid tribe in the deep sea and some migrating birds knew how to sing. But Saint Nazir was far away from the ocean and none of the birds that knew how to sing would pass by here when migrating. So to Sandy or even the entire Saint Nazir, singing was a luxury. Gu Mingming did not know this. She was just purely pleased by Sandy's expectant gaze. Hence, she hummed twice to set the tone. She then stirred the fish soup in the pot while singing. Other than being in love, we're also fortunate to have the happiness of chatting with a good friend. You're my dowry, my most precious collection. I won't marry a man who doesn't nod his head. I'm your dowry, please keep me by your side. Don't marry a man who thinks I'm too noisy. Sandy and Maya were already in a daze. They only looked at Gu Mingming with adoration and did not notice that Leah, Bode and Nissan had already returned with the fish soup. Only when Gu Mingming finished singing the last note and was hugged by Leah did the two of them regain their senses. They exclaimed in surprise, "Gu Mingming, you sang so beautifully. It's the most beautiful voice in the world." Aside from the topic, the song that Gu Mingming was singing was called Dowry. It was sung by Guijing and it was rather nice. Then I would like to thank my precious prodigal son Forever Alone, and our precious Xian from QQ Reading. With your support, this novel could achieve such results today. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for voting and leaving comments for me these few days. Thank you, thank you. Chapter 155. Gu Mingming did not reply to Sandy. Please forgive her, she was a person who prioritized love over friendship, a person who only cared about the opposite sex. Moreover, she and Leah were already in the honeymoon phase, so she could only see Leah. She believed that Sandy would understand. "You're back, it's been hard on you." Gu Mingming held Lee's neck and kissed him on the cheek. Lee's expression softened, but he still could not hide his disappointment. "You sang really well, it's a pity. I couldn't listen to the whole thing." Gu Mingming smiled with her eyes squinted. "It's nothing, isn't it, just singing? If you want to listen, I can sing for you every day." Leah raised his brows and smiled. He kissed Gu Mingming's cheek. "I'm looking forward to it." Gu Mingming saw that Leah clearly wanted to listen to her singing now, so she did not reject him. She nestled in Lee's arms and sang Tian Fujian's Little Luck. After she finished singing, she looked up at Leah and smiled sweetly. Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin with his fingers and covered her lips with his. After kissing for a long time, he called out in a slightly hoarse voice. "Gu Mingming, Gu Mingming, Gu Mingming." Gu Mingming looked at Leah in a daze. Since when did Leah stop calling her by her full name? Suddenly calling her like this made Gu Mingming feel uncomfortable. And this feeling of unfamiliarity pounded against her heart, messing up the rhythm of her heartbeat. "I'm calling your name very seriously." Leah kissed Gu Mingming's forehead again. Then he whispered in her ear, "Because I know that meeting you is the luckiest thing that has happened to me in my entire life." Gu Mingming felt a sweetness in her heart. She could not help but laugh. She hugged Leah back and patted his back gently. "It's just lyrics, don't take it too seriously. Many lyricists are just forcing themselves to write new lyrics. They don't have any real content." Leah did not say much. He just kissed Gu Mingming's lips again. "I'll go cook some fish for you guys." Gu Mingming was a little surprised. Leah had always only cared about her. Why was he suddenly so friendly to Sandy and Maya? When she turned back, she saw Bode's face was flushed with grievance. He took the initiative to take the bowl that Gu Mingming used just now and helped her to fold the new clean leaves. He passed it to her and said, "I don't find you troublesome anymore. You're good, you're good." Gu Mingming was at a loss. Did they all take the wrong medicine just to catch some fish? Sandy was very considerate. She walked over and said, "They must have heard the song you sang for me and Maya. Gu Mingming, you're so nice. You must be singing this so that Leah won't dare to bully us in the future, right?" Gu Mingming really wanted to say that it was just a misunderstanding, but since it was already like this, Gu Mingming decided not to explain further. After all, Yu Xijin's story was a lesson to be learned. Leah improved on Gu Mingming's foundation and the taste of the fish meat was even more delicious. Gu Mingming, who was already full, also ate another bowl of fish. Only then did Leah carry Bode's washed stone pot and carry Gu Mingming back in satisfaction. Gu Mingming was still carrying a big bowl in her arms. She had snatched it back for Elvis when the fish Leah cooked was just out of the pot. Under the setting sun, Lee's silver hair was dyed with a faint afterglow. It appeared to be a mysterious color between pink and purple. The gentle breeze blew some strands of hair away. From Gu Mingming's angle, the words "otherworldly" were clearly written on the side of Lee's face. As she stared at him, she fell into a deep sleep. Lee's embrace was really reassuring. Aside from the topic. Chapter 156. The next morning when Gu Mingming woke up, she could only see darkness in front of her. She was drenched in sweat, and when she stretched out her hands, she realized that she was surrounded by soft and furry sensations. Sensing Gu Mingming's movement, the constant temperature living furry 360-degree bed automatically separated into two sides, black on the left and white on the right. Gu Mingming sat up and stretched, then turned around to look at the two huge creatures lying beside her. She could not help but exclaim, F*******. With that, she pounced back to her original position and rolled left and right. Who could understand the feeling of hugging a husky on one's left and a Samoyed on the other, both with extremely eye-catching body shapes? Gu Mingming just wanted to laugh out loud. Who else but me? Leah and Elvis did not transform into their human forms, but maintained their original forms to look at this little female who was behaving atrociously on them. In the past, anyone who saw their original forms would run away and avoid them. Only she seemed to love their original forms. And after yesterday's incident, Leah clearly knew that Gu Mingming did not have a special fetish for male original forms, because when Nissan appeared in his original form in front of her, her reaction was obviously fear. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's unbridled look and felt warmth in his heart. The corners of his lips curled upwards, revealing a smile. But, damn it, he was in his original form now. His smile directly scared Gu Mingming. Seeing Gu Mingming's face suddenly turning green, Elvis and Leah instantly transformed into their human forms and supported her with concern. What's wrong? Why is your face suddenly so ugly? Are you feeling unwell anywhere? Gu Mingming's face once again turned red at an unimaginable speed. Damn it. Both of you are not wearing any damn clothes. Gu Mingming already felt that her nasal cavity had received a serious blow, and two warm currents flowed down her nose. Gu Mingming turned around immediately and stammered, Beast skin dress. Wear it properly. Elvis and Leah looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Elvis turned around and went into the depths of the cave to retrieve the beast skin dress, while Leah walked behind Gu Mingming seductively, swaying his hips and swaying his hips. He hugged her from behind and bent down slightly to accommodate her height. His lips were less than a millimeter away from Gu Mingming's earlobe. He huffed and said, You're the only one here, why are you wearing that? Gu Mingming's heart was beating like a drum and she felt like steam was coming out of her face. He gulped and said, I can't take it. I'll have a nosebleed. Lee's slender and fair fingers brushed past the area below Gu Mingming's nose. His fingers were indeed stained with a bewitching shade of red. He licked it with the tip of his tongue and swallowed that fishy sweetness. Leah said meaningfully, Can I help you clean it up? Gu Mingming did not forget how Leah cleaned her nosebleed in the stream. Once was enough, her little heart could not take a second round. So she hurriedly waved her hands and said, No need, no need. Quickly wear the beast skin dress and my nosebleed will stop. Leah chuckled and lifted Gu Mingming's chin to raise her head to prevent her nosebleed from worsening. But when Gu Mingming raised her head, she met Lee's eyes, who was standing behind her and looking down at her. Leah, who was topless, had the lazy look of someone who had just woken up in the morning and an ambiguous smile that belonged exclusively to Gu Mingming. He kissed her forehead lightly and said, Good morning, my Gu Mingming. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darlings seeing deer in Han Shi, and loving rainy days who tipped me in QQ bookstore. Thank you to all the little darlings who helped me leave messages and update various statistics during the PK period. When I know the results of this PK, I will inform everyone immediately. Regardless of success or failure, the process of us working hard together is extremely precious to me. Chapter 157. With Elvis's hearing, he naturally heard everything that happened outside. But other than acting as if nothing had happened, he had no other choice. Being able to see her the moment he woke up in the morning was already enough for him. Holding onto the two beast skin skirts, Elvis wrapped one around his waist and threw the other one to Leah. Nina's male was almost killed by you. If you don't go and take a look, he might not be able to survive. Leah shook his head. Leah took over the beast skin dress reluctantly but did not wear it. Instead, he wiped Gu Mingming's nose to clean her little face. Then, he did not care about the nosebleed staining his beast skin dress, making him look like he was on his period. Mingming doesn't like Nina. Leah said as he tied the beast skin dress. I don't like what Mingming doesn't like either. Elvis remained silent and sighed, I don't like her either. Suddenly, the three of them looked at each other and laughed. Gu Mingming obediently helped Leah tie the beast skin dress and tried her best to ignore the blood stain that seemed to be caused by her period. She patted Leah lightly with her little hands and gestured for him to sit down. Leah obeyed. Gu Mingming tore a strip of beast skin from the side and bit it in her mouth. Then she used her hands to gather Li's silver hair and tied a strand of hair from each side of his ears together. Then she twisted it inwards and a simple hairstyle was formed. Gu Mingming walked to Leah to take a look and nodded in satisfaction, saying, I was thinking yesterday that this hairstyle would definitely suit you. It's not too deliberate and it can still display your outstanding beauty. You're so handsome. Leah had never cared much about his hair, but after Gu Mingming's praise, Leah felt that his hair was really not bad. With a smile, Leah tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and said, I know you're the softest, you don't have to flatter me like this. I'll go and treat Nina's partner. After all, he's from Saint Nazir and as a witch doctor, I won't leave him to die. Gu Mingming also felt that her flattery was a little exaggerated, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. She could praise her own boyfriend however she wanted, right? Who could control the subjective thoughts of a young girl in love? Leah stood up and held Gu Mingming's little hand reluctantly, saying, I know you don't like Nina, so I won't bring you along. I'll ask Elvis to pluck some fruits for you later to fill your stomach. I'll bring you a water shuttle when I return, alright? Gu Mingming thought about Elvis's shocking culinary skills and nodded her head in understanding. All right. Leah held Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed it before turning and leaving. Only Elvis and Gu Mingming were left in the cave and the atmosphere became awkward. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and said, I'm going to the stream to wash up, do you want to come along? Gu Vis nodded and carried her and walked towards the river. Up. When she reached the stream, Gu Mingming realized that she was wearing a different set of clothes from the one she had worn last night. She tilted her head and asked, These clothes, Ellis? That. The second half of Gu Mingming's sentence was stuck in her throat and turned into an O. After answering, Gu Mingming did not dare to look back at Elvis. She just squatted down beside the river and splashed some cold water on her face. There was a strange uneasiness in her heart, but she could not pinpoint what it was. There was a voice in her heart that kept praying for Elvis to not open his mouth. But it was obvious that Gu Mingming did not burn enough incense usually, so the deities did not have the intention to protect her. Have you considered the matter we talked about the last time? Elvis finally opened his mouth. The previous question he asked was just 3 words. What about me? Aside from the topic, this is the last update for today. We'll resume our normal updates tomorrow and wait for the editor to inform me of the PK results. If we pass this round of PK successfully, there will be a 2P session and a new round of explosive updates. During this period of waiting, we'll resume our normal schedule of 2 updates a day. Chapter 158. Gu Mingming froze while she was washing her face. She pursed her lips and stared into the water for a while before finally deciding to face it. Shaking off the water droplets on her hands, Gu Mingming stood up and faced Elvis. She frowned unknowingly. She did not know why, but she just felt guilty towards him. But it was useless to avoid what she had to face, wasn't it? Moreover, she had nowhere to run. Elvis, I know you treat me very well, but I really can't accept you. Gu Mingming slowly approached Elvis and stopped 3 steps away from him. She raised her head and said seriously, I know this is Saint Nazir and the rules of the world that I was originally in do not apply here. I am willing to try to follow the customs here, but things like polygamy, I really can't do it. Elvis stood at the same spot like an iron statue. He looked at Gu Mingming for a long time before asking, why not me? Gu Mingming was silent for a while. Yeah, why not Elvis? He was the first person she met. When they first met, she thought he was a dream. So unattainable, so dreamy and illusory. She hugged him and molested him, even saying, I will not take responsibility, as a proverb. It was just a joke at that time, but now it seemed like it was destined. Elvis was strong and he treated her extremely well. But unfortunately, his heart was biased towards that flirtatious snow fox. Many things could not be explained just like that. Gu Mingming sighed helplessly and said, how can there be a why in matters of the heart? Can you explain clearly why you like me? Elvis looked at Gu Mingming in silence for a long time. Gu Mingming smiled faintly and said, is it because I am prettier than the other females here? But no matter how good my looks are, I will still grow old. Is it because I know more than the other females? But the things I know, even if I don't mate with you, I will impart them to the people of Saint Nazir. Sooner or later, everyone will learn what I know. Then will I still be special? Elvis was not Leah, he was not as eloquent as Leah. But he knew that what Gu Mengmeng said was wrong. Even if she grew old one day and became ordinary, he had absolute confidence that he would still love her, or even love her even more. Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something more, but Elvis took 2 steps forward and pulled her into his arms. His voice was low and hoarse, with a tinge of loneliness and begging, "I won't fight with Leah for the position of the first partner, I just want to stay by your side." Gu Mengmeng pushed Elvis, but he did not budge at all. She wanted to say something, but Elvis did not give her a chance. "Your identity is special, Leah alone cannot protect you. Not just me, you need more and stronger partners. Leah knows this too." Before Elvis could finish his sentence, Gu Mengmeng said, "I'm different from the females here. I'm not someone who can only wait for others to protect me." Elvis was taken aback and felt a little desolate. Yes, she was the messenger of the beast deity and was different from the other females who could only wait for males to protect them. Gu Mengmeng took the opportunity when Elvis was in a daze and pulled herself out from his arms. She took 2 steps back and said, "When Leah returns later, I will move into his cave. I have troubled you during this period of time, thank you for taking care of me. Aside from the topic, thank you to my QQ reading darling? Dream? Little Rabbit, Jade Treasure, Dream Wanderer's Dream, Low Voice, Hua Feihua's Style as a reward. And thank you to Xiaoxiang's darling Big Banyan Tree for her recommendation vote. Thank you, and to Xiaoxiang's darling Yu Xiao of the 4 Young Masters. QQE 381DC0DB2 for her gift of flowers. Thank you to everyone for your company and support along the way. I still do not know the results of the PK at the book town. I will share it with everyone once I receive the news." Chapter 159. Elvis's spine stiffened and his blood seemed to have frozen in that instant. He could not breathe for a long time and could only stare at Gu Mengmeng fixedly. That pair of eyes that were as clear as a deer's were filled with determination and determination. Elvis knew that this expression was not just a female's willful and angry words. She was really going to leave his life. The left side of her chest stopped for a long time before a deafening sound rang in Elvis's ears. His eyes were bloodshot and his vision blurred. Turning around resolutely, Elvis only said one sentence, "You don't have to leave." Then he left with big strides. Looking at Elvis's back, Gu Mengmeng felt like she was about to be swallowed by guilt. Rejecting someone was really a stressful thing. Gu Mengmeng only hoped that she would not have to do it a second time in this lifetime. She swore that she would never be envious of the school bell being confessed to 8 times a day and that rejecting someone was as easy as chewing potato chips. What did Elvis mean when he said she didn't have to leave? Was he going to let her stay in the cave? That was not good. Rejecting someone and still asking them to leave without a penny? How shameless was that? Gu Mengmeng felt that she could not do such a thing, so she decided to pack her things first and move to Li's place when he returned. Returning to the cave, Gu Mengmeng looked down at her aching feet. She finally understood why Leah and Elvis always carried her every time she left the house and almost never let her walk on her own. Their thoughtfulness was because she was too slow and only realized it now. Looking around, Gu Mengmeng's vision was limited and she could only see less than 10 square meters around the entrance of the cave. Any further in and it was pitch black. If Gu Mengmeng went in, she would be blind with her eyes wide open. However, when he thought about it, he had transmigrated here while swimming. The only thing that belonged to him was probably the bikini that he had bought from the salesperson to coincidentally meet a senior from the swimming club. So there was really nothing much to pack. Gu Mengmeng wore the bikini and then put on the clothes that Elvis made for her. Yeah, there was a protective cover all over and it was indeed much safer than being in a vacuum. Gu Mengmeng patted her hands in boredom and paced back and forth at the entrance of the cave, waiting for Leah to return. She prayed silently in her heart, hoping that Leah would return earlier than Elvis so that it would not be too awkward. But after waiting for a long time, the sun had already set and Leah was still not back. Furthermore, Elvis did not return. The cave in the night was still very frightening. It was all because of this damn territorial awareness. As the leader of Saint Nazir, Elvis lived in the largest territory. Not to mention neighbors, there was not even a bug in the surroundings. At this moment, the only thing that could accompany Gu Mengmeng was her blurry shadow that was illuminated by the silver moonlight. Other than the sound of the wind, she could only hear her own heartbeat. The longer she waited, the more flustered she got. Elvis and Leah had never left her alone like this before. Could it be that Leah had gone to heal Nina's partner but Nina did not appreciate his kindness and allowed her other partners to attack Leah instead? Thinking about this, Gu Mingming's mind was already filled with the image of Leah lying in a pool of blood, barely breathing. Standing up abruptly, Gu Mingming did not care about the pain in her leg and ran towards Sandy's house. She did not know where Nina's house was located, so she could only ask Sandy for help. After running for a short distance, she saw a pair of green eyes staring at her in the dark. She staggered and fell to the ground. She took a few steps back in fear, only to realize that her legs and hands were jelly. In the face of such danger, she did not even have the ability to escape. She could only watch as the pair of green eyes slowly approached her, step by step. Aside from the topic, that, babies, let's make a deal, we won't send razor blades. Chapter 160. When the owner of the eyes completely appeared in front of Gu Mingming from the night sky, she was instead relieved. Elvis? Why did you only come back now? Gu Mingming tried to stand up but realized that her legs were too weak to stand up. She just sat cross-legged on the ground with her hands hanging weakly on the outside of her knees. She looked up at the black wolf in front of her and said, "Did you see Leah? He still hasn't returned, I'm a little worried." Elvis did not transform into his human form and just used his head to nudge Gu Mingming, signaling her to return to the cave. Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked Elvis, "What's wrong? Did something happen? Why don't you transform back into your human form?" Elvis nudged Gu Mingming a few more times, but she stubbornly refused to go back. Elvis had no choice but to throw her onto his back and carry her back to the cave. Even though they were only a few steps apart, Gu Mingming could clearly feel Elvis's abnormality. Even though he tried his best to hide it, Gu Mingming still discovered that his hind leg seemed to be injured. Gu Mingming did not struggle along the way as she was afraid of worsening Elvis's injuries. Only until Elvis sent her into the cave and turned to leave did Gu Mingming open her arms and block Elvis's path. "What happened to your leg? You're injured, right?" Elvis instinctively moved his leg back and a low whimper came from his throat. Gu Mingming did not understand beast language and could only reply anxiously, "Leah went to treat Nina's partner and hasn't returned for a day. Why don't you rest in the cave first and I'll find Leah to treat your injury?" Gu Mingming said and turned to run out. But Elvis did not care about his injury as he bit the back of Gu Mingming's dress and brought her back into his arms. With his front paws he pulled Gu Mingming into his arms. Gu Mingming did not feel as much pressure when facing Elvis in his beast form. Moreover, his hind leg was clearly injured and if she struggled, it would definitely cause a second injury. Hence, Gu Mingming did not dare to move recklessly and could only allow Elvis to protect her under his abdomen. He rubbed his chin against the top of her head gently and finally placed her head on his neck. His chin, the softest part of his lower jaw, gently pressed against the top of her head. He hugged her just like that and did not sleep for the whole night. Gu Mingming did not know when she fell asleep, but when she woke up again, Elvis had already disappeared. There were some washed fruits placed at the entrance of the cave, which must have been left there by Elvis. Gu Mingming looked around but did not find any traces of Lee's return. A huge sense of uneasiness and suspicion spread in Gu Mingming's heart. She could not be bothered to eat those fruits, nor could she be bothered with how painful her feet were. She just relied on her memory to walk out of Elvis's territory and headed straight for Sandy's place. Before Gu Mingming reached Sandy's house, Sandy had already come out of the cave to welcome her. Her eyes were bloodshot and red. It was obvious that she had been crying. "You?" Gu Mingming could not make a request in Sandy's current state, so she asked with concern, "What happened? Did Nina bully you again?" Sandy shook her head. The tears that she had finally stopped started to fall again. She held onto Gu Mingming's little hand and stared fixedly at her with her tear-filled eyes. Biting her lower lip, she could not say a single word. Finally, she pulled Gu Mingming into her arms and hugged her tightly. Then she burst into heart-throbbing sobs until she could not breathe. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's back lightly. She did not know what had happened, but she felt as if there was a dark cloud floating above her head, making it hard for her to breathe. Aside from the topic, recommending her good friend Hua Zhixing Bao's article Young Master Gu's Flash Marriage Sweet Wife, a sweet article about love after a flash marriage. The rich and handsome Gu Senqing got married in a low-profile flash marriage. The couple in the flash marriage was the daughter of the unknown Yu Jiaojiao. Everyone said that Yu Jiaojiao received this honor because she saved the Milky Way galaxy, but they did not know that their fates were already intertwined 2 years ago. Gu Senqing from Jin City was handsome and rich. More importantly, he had no scandals and was rumored to not be close to women. He had been cold for 27 years and fell head first into Yu Jiao, the little vixen. After the marriage, Gu Xinqing's peaceful life was in turmoil. President Gu, Madam broke the old master's favorite vase. The man did not even lift his head, just find a similar one and send it over. President Gu, Madam released old Madam's favorite parrot. Go to South America to find a new one for her. President Gu, Madam went on a date with old Madam's sugar baby. Chapter 161. Sandy cried for a long time while Gu Mingming let her hug her blankly until she finally stopped crying. She sobbed and said, Gu Mingming, don't be too sad. Although Leah, you still have Elvis. Hurry up and mate with Elvis, don't let Nina. Sob. Sandy stuttered her words, but Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. She held onto Sandy's shoulder and asked with furrowed brows and squinted eyes, Say, what happened to Leah? Sandy looked at Gu Mingming with her swollen eyes and asked timidly, You still don't know? Gu Mingming asked, What should I know? Sandy cried even louder. Gu Mingming had never been so frustrated before. She was absolutely sure that Sandy was not crying because she was bullied, but because of her, and it had something to do with Leah. Don't cry, tell me what happened first. Where is Leah? Gu Mingming held onto Sandy's shoulder tightly and forced her to calm down. Sandy cried until her nose was covered in tears and snot. She said in a sobbing tone, Leah is going to mate with Nina. What? Gu Mingming staggered 2 steps back before shaking her head and forcing a smile. Impossible, this is impossible. Leah was still fine with me yesterday and he is going to mate with Nina today. How is this possible? It's true, the entire tribe knows about it. Gu Mingming had long let go of Sandy's shoulder, but she was still standing at the same spot, crying loudly with Gu Mingming's support. Gu Mingming's head was buzzing and she could not think straight. She could not figure out why Leah would do this. Gu Mingming held onto Nina's arm and resisted the tears in her eyes. Bring me to Nina's house. What do you want to do? Sandy held onto Gu Mingming's hand and said, Elvis is not by your side now, it's too dangerous for you to go there alone. What if? Gu Mingming chuckled and said, What if? Would Leah still do anything to me? Sandy pursed her lips and did not reply, but from her expression, one could tell that this was what she was worried about. Gu Mingming did not care so much and pulled Sandy out. Although Bode did not like Gu Mingming ordering him around all the time, he had received many favors from Gu Mingming. Now that Gu Mingming had dragged Sandy along, he could not just stand by and watch. So Bode carried Sandy on his back and carried Gu Mingming in his arms with the other hand. With a dark face he said, I will send you over. Gu Mingming could not divert her attention to thank him. She just wanted to find Leah quickly and bring him back. Bode's speed was very fast and he arrived at the outskirts of Nina's territory in no time. He placed Sandy and Gu Mingming down and said, I can only send you up to here. If anything happens, just shout out loud and I will go in and save you. Gu Mingming was not in the mood to listen to Bode's instructions, so she ran towards Nina's cave barefooted. Before he reached the door, he saw Nina strutting out of the cave with Leah beside her. Gu Mingming ignored Nina and looked straight at Leah. She tried her best to smile and said, Leah, you did not return home for a day. I was very worried about you. Leah, I am here to fetch you. Let's go home. Leah stood at his original spot and maintained his elegant yet distant smile. He looked at Gu Mingming and replied, I think I can't go with you anymore. Aside from the topic, thank you to QQ Readings Girls Future and Last Sight for their tips. Then, because I am going to start my Leah plot, I will be lurking in the QQ group and pretending to be dead for the next few days because I am afraid of being beaten up. I will only appear when I give out meat to everyone a few days later. Chapter 162. Why? Gu Mingming's smile froze on her face. Leah clearly did not reply, but her tears fell down uncontrollably. Gu Mingming ignored the sourness in her eyes and did not want to analyze the reason why her heart felt so suffocated. She just wanted to call Leah back with the brightest smile. But Leah stood at the same spot and did not move an inch. He was still smiling gently and replied, Gu Mingming, it's almost winter. Gu Mingming did not understand what Leah meant and could only wipe away the tears in her eyes quickly. She looked at Leah attentively and waited for him to continue. Lee's gaze passed through Gu Mingming and drifted to a faraway place. He continued in a disappointed tone, I've already become an adult for a long time. If I don't mate soon, I'll miss the opportunity to give birth to the strongest cubs. Gu Mingming's mind exploded and her heart was in turmoil. A thought kept surfacing in her mind. Leah left her because she was unwilling to mate. That's right from the start she only intended to date Leah. When Leah confessed to her, she even told Leah clearly that she would not mate with him and could only date him in order to lessen her psychological burden. She could occupy Lee's good side confidently and tell herself, this is a consensual thing, but now Leah was unwilling. Gu Mingming was trembling all over but she could not say a word. She could only clench her fists tightly and look at Leah. Her tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes like a beautiful stream. She did not know what she was hoping for and she also knew that this looked very unpromising. But she just could not turn around suavely and could not say those words to make him stay. Leah did not give Gu Mingming too much time to organize her emotions. He continued as if Gu Mingming was someone unrelated to him. Nina promised that her mating rights will always belong to me until she gives birth to a strong cub for me. So, I have to stay by her side and help her recuperate. That's right. Nina held her head high and puffed out her chest. She had never felt so carefree before. She took a small step forward and said, so what if you became the first beauty of Saint Nazaire? Dragging along two good males like Leah and Elvis but not willing to mate with them. Are you asking them to sacrifice for you for nothing? How selfish. I'm different. I can give Leah a litter or even several litters of cubs. With Lee's strength and my perfect genes, our baby will definitely be a king in the future. Gu Mingming took a quick step forward and raised her hand to hit Nina. But just as she was about to raise her hand, her wrist was grabbed tightly by someone. Nina hid behind Lee's back like a startled bird and gave Gu Mingming an embarrassed smile. She did not say much and just hugged Lee's waist tightly for protection. On the other hand, Leah held onto Gu Mingming's wrist with one hand and patted Nina's back gently with the other. His gaze met with Gu Mingming's doubtful gaze. His smile was still so elegant, like a demon or a deity, but it did not have the warmth he had when he looked at her in the past. Lee's voice was cold and calm like an ancient well, piercing to the bone. Nina is my female. No one can touch her, including you. Gu Mingming tried to retract her wrist but Leah did not let go. She could clearly feel the sharp pain coming from her wrist. This was Lee's warning. If she dared to touch Nina again he would break her wrist? Ha, Sandy's words really came true. Leah really did touch her. Aside from the topic, thank you to Dan Xiaoxing and Big Momo for their long reviews on QQ Reading. To be honest, I'm very touched. These days there are very few people willing to spend money to read novels. There are even fewer people willing to write long reviews for a work than to spend money to read novels. It's almost to the point of being as rare as a phoenix feather and a unicorn horn. I have to say that I'm lucky and blessed to receive two such heartfelt long reviews in one day. Chapter 163. What if I hit her? What do you want? Kill me? Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and raised her head stubbornly. Damn, someone snatched her boyfriend and still dared to show off to her. If she could bear with this, she, Gu Mingming, should be able to ascend to heaven and become a bodhisattva. Leah shook his head and said, I won't. Gu Mingming's eyes brightened with a tinge of anticipation. Leah continued immediately, with me around, I won't let you hit her. Gu Mingming smiled bitterly and nodded, indicating that she understood. Leah then let go of her hand and stood in between her and Nina, not giving her any chance to hurt Nina. Good, very good. Gu Mingming took a step back and used her other hand to support her numb wrist. She looked at Leah and said, since I know that you are safe and sound, I can rest assured. Even if you are not with me, I still wish you happiness. With that, Gu Mingming turned around and moved her feet with difficulty, step by step, back to where she was. Nina's words were like a thorn, piercing straight into Gu Mingming's heart. Every time her heart beat, the sharpness would penetrate deeper. Gu Mingming, you are so selfish. You can't give a promise, so what right do you have to dominate Leah? Her footsteps were heavy, as if she was dragging the entire world. Just 3 to 5 steps. Gu Mingming already felt that she had exhausted all her energy. Can't stop, can't stop. Gu Mingming kept shouting to herself in her heart. She didn't want to part with good intentions, she didn't want Leah to remember her begging for pity in a weak and pathetic state. She didn't want it. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip tightly, trying to hold back her developed tear glands. She clenched her fists tightly and hung them by her sides, not allowing herself to show the action of wiping her tears. She thought that as long as she did that, no one would know that she was crying. But she forgot how sensitive the senses of males in the beast world were. Her first tear was seen clearly by everyone present. Xiaoming. Just as Gu Mingming was about to give up, someone held her shoulders. Gu Mingming looked up but could not see what the person in front of her looked like. But, in the entire Saint Nazaire, only Elvis would call her Xiao Meng. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and could not say a word. She felt that her throat was dry and tight and she could not make a sound. Elvis carried Gu Mingming in his arms, one hand supporting her butt and the other on her back. He patted her gently and let her lean on his shoulder. Elvis's voice was a little hoarse. Even though he tried his best to control it, he could not hide his heartache. After deliberating for a long while, Elvis only said one sentence. "It's all right, I'm here to bring you home." With that, Elvis carried Gu Mingming and turned to leave. Other than Gu Mingming, he did not even look at anyone else. Walking out of Nina's territory, Gu Mingming started to choke with sobs. By the time she reached Elvis's territory, Gu Mingming had already cried so much that she could not even make a sound. She could only open her mouth wide to let out a gasp, with tears flowing down her cheeks. It would be nonsense to say that Gu Mingming's crying was beautiful. Now her nose was full of tears and mucus. She was as pathetic as she could be and as ugly as she could be. But even so, Elvis still felt an unprecedented heartache. It was as if something in his left chest was being torn apart by sharp claws and fangs, being gnawed away bit by bit until nothing was left. Aside from the topic, hello everyone, this is Mr. Automatic Update of Stored Manuscripts. Chapter 164. Even Gu Mingming herself did not know when she fell asleep. It was only when her throat was so dry that she had no choice but to open her eyes. Only then did she realize that her eyes were swollen like peaches and she could only open them a little. Elvis brought a cup of water to Gu Mingming's mouth and she took it without hesitation and started gulping it down in big mouthfuls. Elvis was afraid that she would choke, so he patted her back lightly. After Gu Mingming finished drinking, she returned the cup to Elvis and stood up to walk out without saying a word. Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's wrist and asked, "You still want to find him?" Gu Mingming knew that the he Elvis was referring to was definitely Leah. Just thinking of that name made Gu Mingming's heart ache. She did not have the confidence to see Leah again and hear those heartless words again. So she shook her head in denial. Elvis heaved a long sigh of relief and the strength in his hand relaxed a little. He did not want to see Gu Mingming's heart-wrenching look again. Elvis took a step forward and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms, saying, "Your feet are all bruised and are not suitable for walking for now. Where are you going? I'll bring you there." Gu Mingming lowered her head to look at the bottom of her feet. There was a large patch of bruised skin with traces of blood seeping through it and it looked rather miserable. But why did she not feel any pain? Oh, perhaps there was a limit to the pain a human body could feel? It was all concentrated on her heart and she could not feel any other parts of her body. But Gu Mingming did not reject Elvis's suggestion. Her throat could barely open to speak after drinking water, but it was extremely hoarse. Every word that came out of her mouth felt like a small knife was slicing her throat. "I want to go to the lakeside, the place where I first met you." Elvis did not know what Gu Mingming wanted to do. In fact, he could not understand most of the things that Gu Mingming did. But to Elvis, as long as Gu Mingming did not cry, he had no opinion on what she wanted to do. So, Elvis took out a thicker piece of beast skin and wrapped Gu Mingming up. Although winter was not here yet, the weather had already turned cold and he could not let his Xiao Ming freeze. Gu Mingming did not resist and let Elvis do everything on her body. Gu Mingming, who had been as quiet as a rag doll, only reacted when Elvis carried her to the lake where they first met. Elvis's lips curled up slightly as he pointed at the surface of the lake. "That day you were standing there with half your body in the lake. The water reflected on your face and you looked like a lost elf. I couldn't help but get close to you, but I was afraid to disturb you. Then, you actually kissed me." Elvis sunk into his memories. It had only been a short while, but now that he was back here, he felt as if it was a lifetime ago. Gu Mingming wanted to get down from Elvis's arms, but Elvis did not stop her and placed her down according to her wishes. Gu Mingming ignored Elvis's words, or rather, she ignored everything. Gu Mingming walked towards the lake, taking off the beast skin Elvis had on her as she walked. In the end, she was only left with the bikini she was wearing when they first met. She stopped by the lakeside and turned around to look at Elvis. Her lips curled up slightly as she said to Elvis, "Sorry, thank you. Goodbye." After saying that, Gu Mingming fell backwards, causing a huge splash. Gu Mingming curled up her body and held her breath, forcing herself to sink into the water. She wanted to go back, return to the place where she belonged. There was no bloody bonfire party, no twisted marriage values, no Elvis, no Leah. Aside from the topic. Chapter 165. The moment Gu Mingming laid on her back, Elvis rushed towards her almost instinctively. His hand was in midair and he could not grab hold of Gu Mingming in time. The uneasiness in his heart grew rapidly and without any hesitation, Elvis jumped into the lake and hugged Gu Mingming, who was holding her breath and sinking tightly in his arms. With a push of his feet he came out of the water. The lake water was already very cold. It was nothing to males but it could be fatal to females. Elvis did not have the time to scold her. He frantically carried the shivering Gu Mingming and ran into the cave. As he ran he howled towards the sky as if he was sending some kind of message. Gu Mingming's mind was in a daze. Her stomach churned from the jolting of Elvis's journey and she poured out a lot of water from her mouth and nose. After Elvis carried Gu Mingming back to the cave, he quickly took out a thick beast skin to wipe her dry before wrapping her up. Then he used the firewood he had prepared earlier to start a fire. When everything was ready, Elvis transformed into a wolf and used his abdomen to protect the frozen Gu Mingming, using his own body heat to maintain her body temperature. Unfortunately, Gu Mingming had been tormented too much these few days. Her body was already weak during her period of menstruation and the cold water made her even more uncomfortable. She curled up and closed her eyes tightly, looking as pitiful as an abandoned baby. Not long after, Elvis heard movement at the entrance of the cave. He transformed into a human and gently placed Gu Mingming beside the fire. He stroked her hair and murmured bitterly, "Can't I?" Gu Mingming did not respond. She hugged her shoulders tightly and curled up her body as much as possible. She was uneasy and in pain. Elvis kissed her forehead lightly and said in a comforting tone, it's all right now. The person you want is here. I'll let him come in and accompany you, all right? Gu Mingming opened her eyes. Her eyelids were sore and painful. She reached out weakly and held onto Elvis's fingers. She asked in a hoarse voice, "Who is here?" Elvis smiled bitterly and answered, "Leah, he's here. He's at the border of the territory. I'll call him in to see you and let him accompany you, all right?" Suddenly, Gu Mingming's nose turned sour and she started crying. She choked with sobs and couldn't speak. She just shook her head desperately. Elvis looked at her strangely and said with heartache, "What's wrong? Why are you crying again?" Gu Mingming did not reply and just shook her head while crying. She used all her strength to grab onto Elvis's fingers but still felt that it was not firm enough. She was afraid that Elvis would pull his hand out to call Leah in. Elvis frowned and wiped away Gu Mingming's tears with heartache. He stood beside her and hugged her in his arms to soothe her uneasiness. He whispered into her ear, "Aren't you torturing yourself because of him?" Gu Mingming did not say a word and just shook her head furiously in Elvis's arms. Elvis could not bear for her to be so agitated, so he tried asking, "You don't want to see him? Then, should I let him leave?" Only then did Gu Mingming calm down. She slowly loosened her grip on Elvis's fingers and continued hugging her shoulders, curling herself into a ball. Elvis sighed. He could never understand what Gu Mingming was thinking about. The only thing he could do was to follow her wishes. Since she did not want to see Leah, then so be it. Elvis walked out of the cave and saw Leah standing at the border of his territory. He asked, "You're not coming in?" Leah's gaze was empty and distant. He smiled bitterly and replied, "This place is no longer a place that I can enter as I please." Aside from the topic, in order not to be stuck, there will be an update later to clarify what exactly was going on with Leah. Chapter 166. Elvis remained silent and did not reply. Leah took a deep breath and took the initiative to ask, "She doesn't want to see me?" Actually, Leah heard everything that Elvis said to Gu Mingming in the cave. He even heard her sobbing and shaking her head clearly. Elvis nodded his head slightly and pressed his lips into a straight line. But Leah smiled and said with bitterness and a tinge of relief, "She doesn't want to see me. Luckily, she doesn't want to see me." Elvis looked at Leah in confusion and did not say anything. He only used his gaze to ask for Leah's opinion. Leah heaved a long sigh of relief and said, "She doesn't want to see me because she still hates me." Still hates me, at least it means that she has me in her heart. Elvis did not really understand Lee's logic and only told him about Gu Mingming being soaked in cold water and how he handled it. Leah nodded his head and said, You handled it well. Before I came, I had already asked Bode to cook a pot of water shuttle and added a lot of yellow roots. Sandy will send it over in a while. Coax Ming Ming to drink more. Elvis nodded his head in agreement and then looked at Leah. Then you? Leah waved his hands and said, the most important thing now is for you to mate with Ming Ming before winter. Only after you successfully become Ming Ming's first partner can I tell Ming Ming the truth and think of a way to ask for her forgiveness. Elvis asked, are you confident that she will forgive you? Leah shook his head and smiled bitterly. No, I'm just gambling. I'm gambling that in her heart, I'm more important than her principles. Elvis sighed and said, why did you choose Nina back then? If you choose Sandy, there's still someone who can help you when you explain to Xiaoming in the future. But Leah shook his head and said, how can I let her lose her best friend at the same time when she loses her lover? She likes Sandy so much. It's always good to have Sandy accompany her when she's sad because of me. Elvis remained silent and stood at the same spot, not knowing what to say. But Leah used his chin to point at his leg and asked, how did you explain your injury to Ming Ming? Elvis's expression darkened and he said in a low voice, she didn't ask, so I didn't explain. Leah patted Elvis's shoulder and said, bring out the aura you had when you fought with me that day. I did not hesitate to land myself in such a situation just to see you helpless in front of Ming Ming. Elvis was silent. He had nothing to say. Actually, he did not mind that he was not Gu Mingming's first partner, nor did he mind that Gu Mingming liked Leah more than him. He only wanted to stay by Gu Mingming's side to take care of her, protect her and watch over her. But Gu Mingming's insistence on maintaining monogamy had forced him into a dead end. He did not mind being neglected or being wronged, but leaving her and losing her was his bottom line. This was the only thing he could not agree to. So that night, he went to look for Leah and used the usual method of males in the beast world to decide who would protect Gu Mingming. He had won, but seeing how upset Gu Mingming was because of Lee's departure, Elvis had been asking himself for the past 2 days, was he wrong? Maybe he should not have won. Leah and Elvis had many years of friendship, fighting side by side and risking their lives so many times, so they had a deep understanding of each other. Even if Elvis did not say anything, Leah understood what he was thinking. Don't feel guilty, losing to you was my own decision. We all know that this is the best choice, isn't it? Aside from the topic, branches, looking at Elvis carrying Gu Mingming off, the smile on Lee's face slowly froze. He frowned in disgust and ordered coldly, take your dirty hands off me. Nina, who was hugging Lee's waist and feeling pleased with herself, was stunned by Lee's roar. She looked up at Leah blankly, only to realize that his eyes were still staring at the direction Gu Mingming disappeared in, not even sparing her a glance. If I hear you casually express your opinion in front of Mingming again, I don't mind the number of females in St. Nazaire becoming 3. As Leah said that, he took out a beast-skin rope from his waist and tied 2 strands of long hair behind his ears before folding it inwards. This was the hairstyle Mingming had praised. She said it looked good. Leah, how can you speak to me like this? I'm the Nina who wants to mate with you. Nina shouted at the top of her lungs. Mate? Leah sneered, are you even worthy? Chapter 167. Not long after Leah left, Sandy really carried a big pot of fish soup over. The smell of ginger could be smelled from afar. Elvis welcomed Sandy outside the cave and took the stone pot from her hands. He then invited, Xiaoming is inside, do you want to accompany her? This was the first time Elvis invited another female into his cave and he felt a little awkward. But for Gu Mingming he would do anything he did not like. Sandy's heart was already on Gu Mingming and she did not have the time to feel proud of Elvis's invitation. She just nodded and walked in without standing on ceremony. The moment she entered the cave, Sandy saw Gu Mingming curled up in a corner. Her chubby little face puffed up and Sandy took a few steps forward to hug Gu Mingming in her arms. She imitated how she used to comfort herself when she was crying and patted her back lightly. Gu Mingming, I don't allow you to spoil yourself like this. Gu Mingming opened her red and swollen eyes and saw that the person who came was Sandy. She wanted to smile so that Sandy would not worry, but the corners of her lips were too heavy. No matter how much strength she used, she could not even pull out a curve. Sandy cupped Gu Mingming's little face with both hands and looked at Gu Mingming seriously. If you want to cry, don't force yourself to smile. I will accompany you. When you are done crying we will eat something delicious. Bode's culinary skills have improved a lot recently and the food he makes is getting better and better. He cooked water shuttles today and I specially brought them for you to eat. Once you are full, you will not feel uncomfortable anymore. Gu Mingming shook her head and leaned into Sandy's arms. She wrapped her arms around Sandy's waist and choked with sobs. I have no appetite. This was the first sentence Gu Mingming said after returning from the lake. Her hoarse and weak voice made Sandy hug Gu Mingming over and over again in heartache. She said with a sullen face, you don't even want to eat delicious food, looks like you are really feeling terrible. Elvis felt suffocated. Gu Mingming's pitiful look made him feel as if his heart was pierced by an icicle. Every time his heart beat, the flesh that was stuck to the icicle would tear a little. The pain seeped into his bones and he did not want to live. Sandy's attention was completely on Gu Mingming and she really did not have the mood to care about Elvis's life. She just hugged Gu Mingming and swayed her body gently saying, actually it's not a big deal. No matter how outstanding Leah was, he was just a male. You're so beautiful. You'll definitely attract even more powerful males to pursue you at the beauty contest next spring. By then we can choose someone better than Leah to piss him off. With that, Sandy suddenly tilted her head and looked at Elvis before continuing, isn't Elvis here? Take Elvis first and mate with him after your estrus period ends. Then take Bareed and Colin too. Take advantage of this winter to mate with them properly. It's best if you can get pregnant in winter. When the snow melts next year and Nina's stomach does not have any reaction, do you think Leah will regret it to death? Gu Mingming smiled bitterly. She thought to herself that Leah chose Nina because she was unwilling to mate with him. If she was willing, Gu Mingming's heart suddenly lit up. She sat up abruptly and grabbed onto Sandy's arm saying, Leah, I want to see Leah. Sandy was confused by Gu Mingming's sudden change. She could only turn her head blankly to look at Elvis with a questioning gaze. Elvis's lips curved upwards but his brows were tightly furrowed. His eyes were filled with a depth that Gu Mingming could not understand or was unwilling to understand. He replied Gu Mingming with a single word of tenderness that could crush bones and blood, all right. Aside from the topic, thank you to the Tycoon Prideful Blood and Water Dragon from QQ Reading for your 1999 plus 99 reading points. It was Gina's first time seeing such a huge reward. She took the screenshot and showed off in the authors group. Thank you baby for satisfying my little vanity, then this love breakup content won't take too long. It should be nearing the end. Babies, bear with it for a few more days. After I have comforted my Ming, I will distribute meat to everyone. Please note to enter the group in advance. QQ group number 4927792773 My QQ is not a member so the group I created could only accommodate 200 people. Now there are 100 plus. Chapter 168. Leah did not walk far and just hid at the edge of Elvis's territory. From this distance, he could barely hear Gu Mingming's voice and occasionally smell her scent in the air. He was caressing the beast-skin rope that Gu Mingming used to tie his hair. When he heard that Gu Mingming wanted to see him, he paused for a moment. Then he tried his best to control his urge to rush to her and climb down the tree slowly. He stood at the edge of Elvis's territory and only stepped in after Elvis agreed to Gu Mingming's request. This was the first time he felt a sense of unfamiliarity and anticipation in this place that he had entered countless times. He did not know what Gu Mingming wanted to say to him, but to him now, it was good enough to hear her voice. According to the rules, without Elvis's permission, he could not enter the cave. So Leah stood at the entrance of the cave and stared at the empty hole. He could clearly hear Elvis whispering to Gu Mingming, "He's here, I'll call him in." Gu Mingming held on to Elvis, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She was the one who had made up her mind to meet Leah, but when he really came, Gu Mingming started to feel guilty. What if she said she was willing to mate but Leah still chose Nina? If that happened, she would not even have the last chance to fantasize. Elvis could not understand Gu Mingming's thoughts and just looked at her with a frown. "Leah, you're here?" Gu Mingming held onto Elvis's arm tightly and did not let him go out or Leah enter. Gu Mingming mustered her courage to ask after looking at Sandy who had been guarding at the side. "Yes, I'm here." Lee's voice was trembling slightly but his face was still calm. No one knew how much effort he had put in to make him appear effortless to others. "I'm saying if I'm willing to mate with you, will you return to my side?" Gu Mingming's eyes were fixed on the entrance of the cave. Even though it was impossible for her to see Lee's expression and state, she was still staring at the entrance of the cave with her heart in her throat. She swore that she was not even this nervous on the day the results of the college entrance examinations were released. Leah remained silent. Gu Mingming was willing to mate with him. This news made him extremely happy, but it also made him feel twice as pressured, suffocating him. Meng Meng. Li's voice was low and hoarse. At this moment when no one was looking, he kept his elegant smile for the first time. He furrowed his brows and replied solemnly, I can die protecting you on the battlefield, but I don't want to see you suffer any harm before I die. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She did not understand what Leah meant. She instinctively looked at Elvis, only to realize that he was frowning in silence. She then turned to look at Sandy, but Sandy just patted her hand, gesturing for her to continue listening to Leah. Li's hearing was very sensitive. He could clearly sense Gu Mingming's condition in the cave, so he paused for a while to give her sufficient time to think and calm down. After Gu Mingming's breathing and heartbeat had stabilized, Leah then continued, The beast world is very dangerous. I can't protect you alone. If you care about me, please accept the rules of the beast world and build a strong family so that I have family members that I can trust, and not have to worry about my partner getting hurt before I die or having no one to take care of him after I die. Aside from the topic, thank you to Shaoxiang Academy's Baby Mao 061028 and Another Me for their 5-star reviews. And thank you to QQ Reading Baby Fada Higher for her tip. As for the little baddies who commented that Leah was defiled by Nina a few days ago, so Leah is a scumbag, please face the wall. Chapter 169. No matter how dumb Gu Mingming was, she understood something by now. She let go of Elvis's arm, looked up at Elvis's eyes and asked, A powerful family, a reliable family member? Who is it? Leah was outside the cave and could not see Gu Mingming's actions. He could only hear from her voice that Gu Mingming's emotions were not quite right, but he still answered, Elvis is the strongest male in Saint Nazaire. He had already advanced to a 3rd-level beast a long time ago, but he could not advance because he did not have the support of the mating contract. I believe as long as you mate with him, he will advance to the 4th level in no time. As long as he successfully advances. Ha! Gu Mingming laughed coldly, interrupting Li's words. She seemed to have lost all her energy and sat down on her own legs weakly. She looked down at her own fingers and muttered, So in your eyes, I am just a tool for you to advance. Li's heart skipped a beat and he instantly understood what made him feel uneasy just now. His Gu Mingming had misunderstood him. Leah wanted to explain, but Gu Mingming beat him to it and said, After I mate with Elvis, he will become extremely powerful. If he is so powerful that he can deal with all the dangers in the beast world that you mentioned, then it will be enough for me to have him alone. Why should I accept the rules of the beast world? If he is still not strong enough to deal with these dangers after mating with me? A family, how many partners do you need to have before it can be called a family? 3, 5, 10, 100? Gu Mingming took a deep breath and stood up abruptly, saying to the outside of the cave, Leave, I don't want to see you anymore. Li's body stiffened. He used all his strength but realized that he could not even control his fingertips. He lost Gu Mingming just like that? Wasn't it something that could be resolved by tolerating, waiting, coaxing and letting her scold him for a while? In her heart, he was ultimately just like that? Leah wanted to rush in and explain to Gu Mingming. He had no time to care about the future, what was right or wrong, what was life or death. He just wanted to hug his Gu Mingming in his arms, watch her laugh, play with her and hear her call him, Daddy Leah. Elvis appeared at the entrance of the cave and grabbed onto Li's shoulder. His expression was solemn and gloomy. His voice was not loud but it was unquestionable. She said she won't see you and asked you to leave. Leah grabbed Elvis's wrist and said, I want to see her. He turned around and retracted his hand. At the same time, his other hand was already strangling Li's neck. Unless she is willing or I die. Leah was taken aback. After a while he looked at Elvis with empty eyes and asked, That day during the duel, if I didn't admit defeat, would you really bite me to death? Even at the cost of a leg? Elvis remained silent for a moment before nodding his head. Yes, I will. Leah frowned and asked, Have you ever thought about what would happen to Saint Nazaire if I die and you become a crippled beast? Elvis remained silent for a long time, then he raised his head and looked back at Ray's eyes with determination. I'm not as smart as you, I can't think of so many things at the same time. I only know that I cannot hand Meng Meng over to you. Leah was shocked and asked, Why? Elvis said in a faint voice, Do you still remember when you saved Xiao Meng from Quinton? Aside from the topic, thank you QQ Reading Baby Pippi U for your tips. Also, how much did the babies remember about Leah saving Gu Mengmeng from Quinton? Did anyone find anything wrong with this matter? Actually, I've been burying this topic since then. But I don't know if I buried it too deeply or you guys were so distracted by Li's flirting that you didn't notice. Also, Elvis and Gu Mingming's mating had been brought forward. According to the standards, the mating process would definitely not pass, so, you guys understand. Chapter 170. Leah nodded his head in confusion, indicating that he remembered. Elvis continued, with your abilities, you should have arrived at the scene a long time ago, right? Li's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely understood what Elvis meant. Elvis did not expect Li's reply and just continued, I heard from Xiaoming that you descended from the sky when she was about to be choked to death by Quentin. You did not come as a bird, the fact that you descended from the sky meant that you had arrived a long time ago. But you did not appear and watched Quentin hurt Xiaoming, right? Leah let go of the hand that he was competing with Elvis and staggered 2 steps backwards, not saying a word. Elvis did not force him to answer and just said calmly, you feel that you are not as important as the principles that she insists on in Xiaoming's heart. But in your heart, isn't Xiaoming also not as important as Saint Nazir? Back then, in order to teach her a lesson so that she would not dare to step out of Saint Nazir easily, you allowed Quentin to hurt her. In the battle with me, you also considered Saint Nazir's future, so you did not use your full strength. In the end, you even thought of a way to pretend to mate with Nina to make Xiaoming sad. In your heart, other than her identity as the messenger of the beast deity and being able to bring a subversive power to Saint Nazir, what else does she have in your heart? Leah was speechless. As intelligent as he was, there was actually a day that he would be speechless after being questioned by Elvis. I cannot hand Xiaoming over to someone who would compare her on a scale. Elvis took a step back and blocked the entrance of the cave steadily. Leah did not rush forward again and just lowered his head to look at his own shadow. He asked as if he was talking to himself, have you told Ming Ming about this? Elvis shook his head and said, I don't want to say anything that will make Xiaoming sad. Leah smiled bitterly and nodded his head. Yeah, with Elvis's character, how would he do something like bad-mouthing others behind their backs? Leah was very clear that his decision back then was rational and correct. In order to keep Gu Mingming in Saint Nazir, he had to first seal the news of her being the messenger of the beast deity within the tribe. The less contact she had with the outside world, the longer this news could be sealed. Then, the chances of Elvis and him fighting to mate with Gu Mingming and even allowing her to give birth to her first child during this period would be relatively higher. So he silently allowed Barit to let Gu Mingming out of Saint Nazir. He thought that with his protection in the dark, everything would be under control. Or perhaps, earlier on, he had already deduced all of this countless times. He never told anyone other than Elvis that Saint Nazir might get the messenger of the beast deity in the future. He allowed Nina to be unruly, willful, arrogant, and despotic. Even the title of the first beauty of Saint Nazir was given to Nina by him. So, when the messenger of the beast deity arrived, Nina, who was used to being arrogant and willful, would definitely cause trouble. And this was the opportunity he wanted. Of course, even without Nina, he would still train a female similar to Nina himself. Could be Sandy or it could be Maya. However, Nina's request saved him a lot of trouble, because those who had done this kind of thing once would be more adept at it. The truth proved that all of Li's deductions were correct. Nina stirred up a conflict as he expected, Quentin laid his hands on females as he expected, and he played the role of a hero in the face of danger as he expected. But he did not expect that the messenger of the beast deity was Gu Mingming, a person who made his heart beat again. Aside from the topic, after receiving the notification from the editor, QQ Bookstore had arranged for the second round of PK. I did not even know if I passed the first round of PK. I, who received the notification directly, was also dumbfounded. The editor requested for a guarantee of 5 chapters during the 2P period. So, my babies, do you know what to do? Bookstore's collection point, and free recommendation tickets every day. Remember, it's every day. Please leave comments and gifts between today and Friday. Chapter 171. Gu Mingming used 7 days to recuperate. On the morning of the 8th day, the moment she opened her eyes, Gu Mingming forced herself to accept reality. Wasn't it just loving the wrong person? Crying for 7 days was already a good for nothing. It was not Gu Mingming's style to risk her life for a man who treated her as a tool. Clenching her teeth, Gu Mingming kept repeating in her heart, I'm fine. I don't care. I can live a good life. Elvis noticed Gu Mingming's abnormality the moment he opened his eyes. This change was infinitely close to his ideal, but why was there a dull pain in his chest? Elvis hugged Gu Mingming's waist lightly and unknowingly pulled her into his arms again. He weighed her in his hands. She had slimmed down again. He frowned but did not know how to comfort her. Elvis, can you bring me to the lake where we first met? Gu Mingming opened her mouth. Elvis's expression froze and his brows formed a dead knot. He asked in a low voice, "Are you going to sink yourself to the bottom of the lake again?" Gu Mingming shook her head and smiled. "I won't be stupid for a man twice." Elvis looked at Gu Mingming doubtfully, not moving or saying a word. Gu Mingming saw that her credibility seemed to have been ruined by Elvis. She laughed at herself and said, "The last time I jumped into the lake, it was not to drown myself. I was just thinking that since I came from that lake, maybe I can go back from that lake." But reality proved that this idea was not reliable. That lake seemed to be a one-way entrance. To go back, I might have to find another exit. Go back. Elvis repeated Gu Mingming's words in a low voice. But he only said one word before he felt as if someone was strangling his throat. Not to mention repeating Gu Mingming's words, even his breathing was not smooth. Gu Mingming was trying her best to pull herself out from her heartbroken emotions. She had already used up a lot of energy to stop herself from crying. She really did not have the mood to figure out Elvis's current thoughts. Gu Mingming looked down and twisted her fingers nonchalantly. "Since I can't go back for now, I have to think of a way to live more comfortably. Roasting fish and meat every day is not a solution. Even if I don't get sick of it, my body can't take it." Elvis recalled that the lake was very special because he met Gu Mingming there. But other than that, Elvis really could not think of anything else in the lake. Gu Mingming could not help but find it funny when she saw Elvis thinking so hard. This kind of brainstorming work was really not suitable for him. Every time he was thinking about a problem, his brows would furrow into a dead knot. Gu Mingming placed her little hand on Elvis's brows and said patiently, "I need to ingest salt to maintain my health. In the past few days I had been feeling weak, which was a sign of a lack of salt. If I don't take in more salt, my condition will worsen, and I won't be able to survive this winter." Elvis immediately tensed up upon hearing that. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder and gestured for him to relax. Then she said, "When I jumped into the lake previously, I accidentally realized that the lake water was salty. I suspect that it was a salt lake. Bring me there to take a look. If that's really the case, then I can be saved." Elvis still had a lingering fear towards Gu Mingming's sudden jump into the lake and the words she said to him before jumping into the lake. Elvis did not dare to take the risk of bringing her closer to that place, especially after knowing that it could be a passage for her to return to the other world. He could not let her near that place. So Elvis asked cautiously, "What does salt look like? Tell me, I'll go get it for you." Aside from the topic, trying to act pitiful, Susu had caught a cold. To someone who did not have a stockpile of chapters, the sudden notification of adding chapters was a huge blow. But for the sake of our Gu Mingming's better development, Susu had been pouring cup after cup of coffee into her stomach, trying her best to stay awake so that she could write more chapters for her babies. "For the sake of my hard work, can you please give me your recommendation tickets every day?" Chapter 172. Gu Mingming raised her brows and looked at Elvis, asking, "Why? Are you planning to imprison me and not let me leave this cave for the rest of my life?" Elvis was taken aback by Gu Mingming's words and shook his head instinctively. Gu Mingming then smiled. "Then it's settled. I promise I won't jump into the lake this time. I didn't have the experience last time and didn't know the water was so cold. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have had the guts to jump in." That was the truth. The water was still warm when Gu Mingming came, but after a few days, it had become extremely cold. It could be seen that winter was indeed coming, and there seemed to be no transition period. Elvis could not reject Gu Mingming in the end, but he was much more cautious this time. He carried Gu Mingming in his arms and did not let her leave his side. Gu Mingming was also happy to be at ease. Without shoes, the ground was cold and hard, and moreover she really did not want to jump into the lake. Being hugged by Elvis to keep her warm was pretty good. When they reached the lakeside again, Gu Mingming's eyes lit up immediately. F******. This was her third time here. Why did she not realize that this was a salt lake the previous 2 times? Large pieces of salt crystals were hanging on the rock wall by the lakeside, but she did not realize it previously? Gu Mingming was extremely excited, pointing at a piece nearer to her. Elvis, hurry hurry hurry, go there. I want that white one. Seeing that Gu Mingming was interested in things other than Leah, Elvis felt slightly more at ease. Looking at the direction Gu Mingming was pointing at, he nodded his head, carrying Gu Mingming, and stepped on the huge rocks by the lakeside. With a few leaps he reached the rock wall. He held onto Gu Mingming with one hand and held onto the protruding part of the rock wall with the other, hanging steadily in midair. Gu Mingming broke off a small piece of salt crystal and licked it with her little tongue. A huge smile bloomed on Gu Mingming's face. That's right, it was what she wanted. Gu Mingming danced with joy, using all her strength to break off a large piece and hugged it in her arms. She wanted to take more, but her hands could only hold too little now. If she used too much strength, there would be nothing left after the salt crystal was crushed. Looking at Gu Mingming's face that was wrinkled like a bun, Elvis asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Is it not what you want?" Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "This is what I want, but I can only take this much." Elvis looked at the large piece of what she called salt in her hands. It was about the size of a rabbit. If it was cooked, it was indeed a little too little. It was rare that Gu Mingming was in the mood and had an appetite, so Elvis naturally would not disappoint her. He said, "It's all right, let's take these back first, I'll help you get them later." Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "It's quite a long journey from here. Let's get enough in one go so that we don't have to run back and forth." Elvis nodded. To him, whatever Gu Mingming said was right, so he said, "Then break off a few more and throw them on the shore. I will take them later." Gu Mingming's lips twitched. Throw it to the shore? If that happened, it would be smashed into pieces. If it got wet, it would be impossible to pick it up even if he wanted to. So, he knew that he was here to look for salt, but why didn't he think of bringing a piece of animal skin with him when he left? I'm so stupid. Beast skin? Elvis's eyes lit up and he said to Gu Mingming, "Beast skin, I brought it." Aside from the topic, hoeing the crops in the middle of the afternoon, stockpiling the manuscript today. The sun sets on the mountain in the morning, stockpiling the manuscript today. Bright moonlight in front of my bed, stockpiling the manuscript today. Not knowing where the human face has gone, I must stockpile the manuscript today. An ancient poem that did not rhyme at all proved that the author had gone crazy. Chapter 173. Gu Mingming blinked her big innocent eyes at Elvis, sizing him up from head to toe. Damn it, he did not have anything on him other than that beast skin dress. Did he bring beast skin? Where did he hide it? Wait a minute. A bomb exploded in Gu Mingming's mind, then she looked at Elvis's beast skin dress with a stiff face. F*******. Leader, you can't be so hardcore, right? Damn it, I'm bringing this salt back to eat, but you want me to use your beast skin dress that does not contain any additives to wrap a certain important part of my body? How can I eat it when I go back to cook? Gu Mingming shook her head like a rattle drum. No, I can't use your beast skin dress. I will be traumatized by the salt. Elvis smiled dotingly. It's all right, after we get the salt, I'll turn into my original form and carry you back. I won't let anyone see my body. Gu Mingming was speechless, holding her forehead. That's not the problem, all right? Elvis did not understand, frowning slightly. Gu Mingming hugged the salt too tightly, some of it had already crumbled in her hands. Gu Mingming looked at the crumbled salt in her hands and hurriedly said, "Let's go down first, I'll think of another way." Without a word, Elvis kicked off with force and jumped up like he was stepping on a spring bed. After a few consecutive jumps, he landed steadily at a distance of 1 meter away from the lake. He placed Gu Mingming down carefully and held onto her shoulders, saying, "Wait for me here, I'll help you get some more." Gu Mingming's body trembled as she looked at Elvis. "Wait for me here, I'll go get more for you." Gu Mingming nodded. She was very clear that with her small body, she would only be a burden if she went over, so she might as well let Elvis handle it. Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders tighter, staring into her eyes. "Promise me, don't go near the lake." Gu Mingming knew that Elvis was scared by her previously, so she smiled. "Don't worry, I treasure my life more than anyone else. I don't have any inclination to commit suicide or harm myself." Elvis was still not at ease, but this was the first time Gu Mingming was interested in something in the past few days. He could see that she was trying her best to divert her attention with other things, so that she would not have time to think about Leah. As long as she could not be sad, he was willing to do all the things for her. As Elvis walked towards the cliff by the lake, he kept an eye on Gu Mingming's movements. Seeing that she only plucked a few big leaves strenuously at the side and then started to wrap the salt carefully, he then leaped up the cliff with a peace of mind. Not long after, Elvis had already made more than 10 trips. Gu Mingming looked at the small mountain of salt crystals in front of her and smiled from the bottom of her heart for the first time in a few days. Together with Elvis, she used leaves to wrap the salt, then tied them up with thinner vines and hung them around Elvis's neck like he was wearing a scarf. Elvis hung a bag of salt around his neck and carried a smaller Gu Mingming in his arms. It felt like a boss of a grocery store bringing his daughter home to buy groceries. Gu Mingming could not help but laugh at this thought. She weighed the sizable amount of salt in her hands and suddenly felt like she was a nouveau riche who suddenly had a huge sum of money. Elvis did not know what these white crystals were used for, but looking at Gu Mingming's smile, he felt that these crystals were really precious. He wanted to collect all the crystals by the lake for her. As long as she could smile like this, it would be enough. Aside from the topic, I saw that some little babies left messages saying that their messages had been deleted. Susu was really innocent in this matter. As a child raised by a stepmother who did not even have a backer in the bookstore, the messages she posted in the QQ group had been deleted a few times. Chapter 174. Elvis called Sandy over to accompany Gu Mingming while he returned to the lakeside, wanting to help Gu Mingming get more salt crystals. But sometimes, when Elvis appeared in front of Gu Mingming with his head hung low like a child who had done something wrong, Gu Mingming deeply experienced for the first time in her life what was called a pig teammate. Looking at Elvis's dejected look, Gu Mingming felt like laughing for some reason. She really wanted to ask, "Elvis, are you actually a pig in wolf's skin?" "Xiaoming, don't be angry. I know where to find the salt crystals you want. Although it's a little far, I can definitely bring a lot of them back for you." Gu Mingming waved her hands and said, "Tell me first, how many salt crystals did you get into the water from the lakeside?" Elvis cleared his throat and used his hands to form a shape about the size of a rice bowl. He then turned his head away, not daring to look at Gu Mingming in the eyes. Gu Mingming's lips curled to one side. This Elvis was really not good at lying. If it was just this little bit, why would he be so nervous? Gu Mingming did not expose him, nor did she reply. She just crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at Elvis with her chin raised. Then she saw Elvis quietly expand the area between his hands. From the size of a bowl, it became the size of a wash basin. He then kept glancing at Gu Mingming from the corner of his eyes. He looked like a husky that had torn down a house. Gu Mingming facepalmed. She no longer doubted that huskies and wolves were close relatives. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder and said, "You have successfully lowered the overall intelligence level of the wolf tribe. If you meet other wolves in the future, hide a little. I'm afraid they will want to bite you to death." Elvis did not really understand Gu Mingming's words. After all, he had never seen a wolf tribe that could defeat him. But he would just treat it as a word of concern. Elvis thought about it and chuckled. He then asked in a probing manner, "About the salt crystals, you're not angry?" Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "I think the salt crystals there are enough to last our entire tribe for 2 to 3 years. It won't affect you much if you get rid of them. Moreover, even if there aren't any salt crystals, I have a way to extract them from the lake. It's just that using ready-made salt crystals would save me a lot of trouble." Elvis then heaved a sigh of relief and understood why Gu Mingming insisted on going over by herself in the morning. Elvis's ears twitched as he heard someone coming from the cave. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Looking at Gu Mingming, Elvis said, "Then you and Sandy can play first. I will go out for a while and be back soon." Gu Mingming did not take it to heart. After all, Elvis was the leader of the tribe. He could not possibly revolve around her every day, right? She nodded and continued to help Sandy spread the salt evenly on the fish that Bode had prepared. Then they strung the fish with vines one by one. 10 fish were strung on one vine and placed at the side. Because the fish were too fat, it was impossible for the 2 females to lift them up. Elvis walked out of the cave and saw that it was indeed Leah. "She's much better today." Elvis did not raise any questions and just stated it directly. Lee's expression was indifferent. Even though he tried very hard to maintain his usual smile, his sunken eye sockets and haggard face revealed his torment. With regards to the messenger of the beast deity, all his plans were correct, but there was a very important premise, and that was that he must never truly fall in love with this messenger of the beast deity. But this important premise had already been shattered by Gu Mingming's daddy Leah, when he was defenseless. Aside from the topic, regarding the issue of giving Gu Mingming a cheat, Sometimes I really don't know what everyone's standards are. My setting is that Gu Mingming is an ordinary first-year female student who accidentally transmigrated. So in the novel, I tried my best to avoid using an unrealistic cheat, referring to the early stages. But there were still people who told me that Gu Mingming's protagonist aura was too strong, as if she did not need to learn anything. And there were also some readers who told me that Gu Mingming was too weak. Why did she not use the cheat? Alright, what I want to say is that I will definitely activate my gold finger, but I won't activate it for no reason. Let me reveal a small clue. The activation of the cheat is related to mating. Then, it's almost time for mating, probably, who knows how many more days. Chapter 175. Leah did not reply. He just passed the bag of leaves tied by a bunch of vines to Elvis, then passed a lot of dried ginger to Elvis, saying, "She always likes some strange things that no one would pick up even if they were thrown on the ground, but she always treats them like treasures." Elvis took over the things from Lee's hands, placed it next to his nose and sniffed it, then he knew that the bag of leaves contained salt crystals. Looking at the method of wrapping it, it was clearly the same as Gu Mingming's. That meant that when they went to the lake to retrieve the salt crystals in the morning, Leah was also there, but he did not realize it. Elvis could now understand what Leah meant when he said, "The beast world is so dangerous. A male cannot protect Gu Mingming." If the one following him today was not Leah but someone else, then Elvis did not voice out his worries. He just asked, "Should I tell her? Did you send it over?" Leah shook his head, smiling bitterly. "Based on her character, if she knew that I brought it over, I'm afraid she would not accept it." Elvis was silent. He could not deny it. Leah understood Gu Mingming much more thoroughly than him. Most of the time he did not know what Gu Mingming was thinking about. He could only do as she said, but Leah could see through her thoughts before she opened her mouth. Perhaps this was the reason why he lost to Leah in Xiaomeng's heart. Elvis nodded, agreeing to it, then carried the things and turned to enter the cave. Leah raised his hand, wanting to stop Elvis, but when the words were at the tip of his tongue, he realized that he did not have the right to instruct him. Looking at his blood-stained and dirty fingers from digging the yellow roots all over the mountain, Leah smiled bitterly, turning to walk back into the mountain. As long as she was happy, so what if he dug his hands till they were mush? Elvis returned to the cave, piling the things that Leah brought over at the side, together with the salt crystal bags they brought back in the morning. Then he sat beside Gu Mingming, watching her and Sandy string up the fishes while chatting and laughing. Bode had brought a total of over 30 fishes, and they were all cleaned, so it was not too strenuous to string them up. After Gu Mingming settled everything, she patted Elvis's arm and asked, "In your territory would there be wild animals that would steal our food?" Elvis shook his head. "The pressure of the orcs is enough to intimidate normal wild animals. They would not dare to go near the tribe." Gu Mingming nodded, then asked again, "Would there be other orcs that would steal of our food?" Elvis was taken aback for a moment, then he smiled and rubbed Gu Mingming's furry little head. "The males of Saint Nazir will not snatch the food of their own females. As for the males from other clans, unless they destroy the entire Saint Nazir, they should not be able to enter this cave to take your water shuttle." Don't worry. Nobody knew what Gu Mingming was doing. Sandy helped out for half a day, only thinking that it was a new game that Gu Mingming had invented. After all, in this boring era, Sandy was tired of throwing a stone and picking it up after playing it for a few years. Compared to those, this game of stringing up the water shuttles was already considered much more fun. Digression. Chapter 176. How long will this take? Sandy tilted her head and asked. Gu Mingming smacked her lips and said, "I don't know either, it depends on the air-drying situation." Sandy did not know what air-drying situation was, but it looked like it would take a long time, so she did not have the desire to continue waiting. She pulled Gu Mingming and said, "Our water shuttles are all used up, why don't we ask Bode and the rest to get some more and we can continue to wear them?" Gu Mingming shook her head and rejected Sandy's suggestion. She pointed at the 30 big fishes hanging on the tree and said, "Although this is delicious, we can't just eat it for the entire winter." Sandy was stunned and her clear big eyes were instantly filled with the colors of a fangirl. Her saliva was about to drip down uncontrollably. She pulled Gu Mingming's arm and pointed at the fish on the tree excitedly, asking, "Edible? Edible?" Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. "Yeah, this will not go bad easily after being dried in the shade. Before winter, Ask Bode to take 2 skewers and leave 1 for me. It's quite enjoyable to eat fish occasionally during winter. Elvis's expression was rather solemn. He took a step forward and held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders. Accommodating her height, he looked into her eyes and asked, "As long as we hang it like this, the food won't go bad?" Gu Mingming smiled and said, "Of course not, it has to be marinated with salt first and then dried in the shade. Although it's not as effective as preservatives, but if it's like what you said, when the snow seals the mountain during winter and we can't even leave the cave, then it's like a natural refrigerator. If we handle it this way, it shouldn't be a problem to store it for the entire winter." Elvis was overjoyed. He carried Gu Mingming and howled at the sky. Gu Mingming did not know what message he was sending. She only knew that after a while, all the males in the tribe gathered in front of Elvis's cave and looked at Gu Mingming with sparkling eyes. "Xiaoming, what kind of food can be stored using this method? Can you tell everyone?" Elvis carried Gu Mingming so that she would not be drowned in the crowd of tall males. And males had very sensitive ears. Even if Gu Mingming's voice was not as loud as Elvis's, they could still hear her clearly. Ever since Gu Mingming broke up with her boyfriend, she had almost never shown her face in front of the public. This long-lost public gaze still made her feel a little awkward. She instinctively hid in Elvis's arms and revealed half of her face, saying, "Any normal food is fine, but I have never pickled those tigers and leopards that you guys usually eat. I'm not sure, but in theory it should be fine." Elvis shook his head and said, "I'm not sure, but in theory it should be fine." The moment Gu Mingming finished speaking, a deafening cheer erupted from the beast horde. No matter how many times she had heard it, the sight of hundreds of beasts roaring at the sky still gave Gu Mingming a fright. Shrinking into Elvis's arms, Gu Mingming was like a frightened kitten. She was protected gently by Elvis as he patted her back slowly. After the males roared, they scattered in all directions to search for food that they could use. At this moment, a familiar person walked in front of Gu Mingming slowly. He smiled bashfully and raised his hand, saying, "Long time no see, Gu Mingming." Gu Mingming then noticed Barit. The last time she saw him was at the platform of the deity's punishment. Chapter 177. Barit clenched his fists and arched his arms, his firm muscles bulging. He displayed his masculine image perfectly, just like a walking hormone. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Looks good, then I'm relieved. Hurry and go look for prey with the rest. If you're late, they'll snatch it all away." Barit was not in a hurry. He stood at the same spot and asked Gu Mingming, "You saved me on the platform of the deity's punishment. To repay you, I'll be responsible for your food this winter. What do you like to eat? Tell me, I'll prepare it for you." This matter, it was Li's suggestion. And at that time she had not lost Leah yet. Gu Mingming could not maintain the smile on her face and her nose felt sour. Gu Mingming despised herself for being so useless in her heart. She rubbed her nose and pretended to think, lifting her little face. She rolled her eyes to get rid of the mist in her eyes and forced herself to smile and answer, "Actually, there's no need. You helped me and I helped you, so we're even now. Elvis will help me prepare my food. You just have to take care of yourself." Barit looked at Elvis, his gaze filled with sincerity and determination, saying, "Elvis, please let me enter your cave this winter." Elvis frowned and remained silent for a moment before saying, "I'll prepare sufficient food for Xiaoming. And she won't agree to it." Barit looked at Gu Mingming, then back at Elvis, saying, "Leader, please allow me to enter your cave this winter." Elvis frowned and squinted his eyes at Barit, saying, "Are you reminding me not to forget myself and my identity?" Barit remained silent, neither admitting nor denying it. Elvis's lips curled up and he tilted his neck to both sides, looking like he was warming up. Gu Mingming completely did not understand what they were talking about, but the smell of gunpowder was too strong. No matter how slow she was, it was impossible for her not to sense it. Barit had just come down from the platform of the deity's punishment a few days ago. A 3-day trip outside the gates of hell was not a joke. Elvis also injured his leg for some reason previously. Why were the 2 disabled patients still so angry? Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder, attracting his attention to her. She then smiled lightly, saying, "Can you bring me around? I don't want to eat meat all winter, I'll get sick of it." Elvis glanced at Barit from the corner of his eyes and did not say anything, only nodding his head. Gu Mingming then turned to Barit and said, "In the past, I didn't understand the rules of the beast world and thought that this place was the same as our world, where men and women could be friends. But now I knew that apart from mating, it was impossible for a male and a female to coexist. I don't want to find a partner here, so don't waste your time on me. Go prepare your own food and don't come looking for me again. After Gu Mingming finished speaking, she wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck, signaling him to leave. Elvis did not stay for a second longer as he carried Gu Mingming out of the tribe. Barit was not dejected by Gu Mingming's words. He knew about Li's situation. Although he could not understand Gu Mingming's view on love, he would not try to change it. He was different from Leah. Mating with Gu Mingming was his dream, but he did not dare to hope that it would come true. As long as he could protect her from afar and help her with some trivial matters, he would be satisfied. So, he maintained a certain distance and followed behind Elvis silently. There was no disappointment, no hesitation, no doubt, only a determined gaze and a primitive instinct to be loyal to himself. Aside from the topic. Chapter 178. Elvis knew that Barit was following behind him, but he did not expose or stop him. It was always better to have one more person protecting Gu Mingming. If she met with an extremely serious danger, it would be so lucky to have a reliable person to bring Gu Mingming away when she was fighting for her life. Gu Mingming did not have sharp senses like Elvis, so she just nestled in Elvis's arms and looked around. Sometimes she asked Elvis to head east, and at other times she wandered around aimlessly. Elvis did not feel annoyed and let her run around the mountain freely. Actually, there seemed to be quite a lot of edible things here, but Gu Mingming did not know much, so she did not dare to try. Until she found a familiar sea of flowers, potato blossoms. Who said that watching Korean dramas was useless? Gu Mingming had seen this kind of flower in a Korean drama, The Best Love, a long time ago. It was probably because the female lead promised to make curry for the male lead, but she forgot why she did not come. The potato that the male lead bought had already sprouted, and in the end only a long green bud grew out, but it did not bloom. Until one day the male lead saw a painting of a potato field, and the field was filled with such buds. An old man told the male lead that potatoes looked like this when they bloomed. The male lead suddenly realized that the potato in his house had bloomed long ago, and then he ran off to look for the female lead in a melodramatic manner, but he could not remember it clearly. Gu Mingming only remembered complaining to her roommates about this point. Who the hell would hang a painting of a potato field as a decoration? It was also because this point was too shocking, so she remembered this scene especially clearly. It was just that Gu Mingming, who was hugging a watermelon and lying on the sofa to watch dramas, really did not expect that this point would actually improve her meals one day in the future. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder excitedly. That. With the previous experience with the salt crystals, Elvis was very careful this time. He did not know what Gu Mingming wanted these grasses for, but his usual principle was, don't ask, just do it. So Elvis carefully walked to the middle of the potato blossoms, then asked, can I just bring these grasses back? Can I just pluck them out? Gu Mingming stretched out her index finger and shook it in front of Elvis like a pendulum. She made a no expression and said, I don't want this grass, I want the thing underneath it. Elvis gently pushed the grass aside and realized that there was only soil underneath. What did Gu Mingming want the soil for? Could it be that dirt could be eaten? Gu Mingming patted Elvis's arm, gesturing for him to put her down. Elvis did as she was told. Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and separated her legs to shoulder width. She held onto a potato pudding with both hands and pulled it up with all her might. *CKME. The skin on his hand was torn. So painful. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis with her bloodshot hands, tears welling up in her eyes due to the pain in her palms. Her pitiful look melted Elvis's heart. He pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and looked at the wound on her palms. The wound was not deep, but to Elvis, it was a ghastly sight. Elvis held Gu Mingming's little hand gently and brought it to his lips. Then, he actually stuck out his tongue and started to lick Gu Mingming's palm carefully. A wave of numbness spread from Gu Mingming's palm to every corner of her body. Gu Mingming stared in bewilderment and stuttered, What are you doing? Aside from the topic, thank you QQ Reader Dream for your tips and concern. I will take care of my body. The all-purpose plain water was already prepared and he was drinking it every day. Chapter 179. Elvis did not answer Gu Mingming's question and just focused on licking her little hand. until he licked every single scar clean. He then placed her little hand by his lips reluctantly and kissed it. Only then did he answer, "This way the wounds won't get inflamed and will heal faster." Gu Mingming's eyes widened. Gu Mingming's face was flushed red and she could not say a word. Previously, Leah had also licked the blood from her nose, but as the distance was too close, she could not see anything clearly and the entire process was transmitted through her skin. But it was different this time. When Elvis was licking her little hand, she maintained a VVIP 3D perspective and watched as Elvis's tongue licked her little hand over and over again as if she was watching a live broadcast. Who could understand the feeling of touching an electric switch for 5 minutes? Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's flushed face and recalled the scene when Leah hugged her in the stream. That day he watched everything quietly from afar and tried his best to control himself from rushing over. Today, he finally had such a chance to taste her wonderful taste. Although they did not have a proper title, she could only rely on him, trust him and let him take care of her. This was enough happiness. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face and then placed her down on a smooth big rock for her to sit properly. Then he pointed at the grass that Gu Mingming wanted to pluck but did not manage to. "Just pluck it up?" Gu Mingming nodded her head blankly. She had not recovered from Elvis's actions just now. Now, as long as Elvis looked at her, she would feel her face burning and she did not know where to place her hands. Elvis liked Gu Mingming's childish look. Did it mean that she finally saw him as an ordinary male when she was shy because of his actions? Elvis was in a good mood and could do his work with ease. He grabbed the handful of grass and pulled out a bunch of potatoes that were buried underground without much effort. Elvis looked at the string of black and swarthy things in shock. He placed it at the tip of his nose and sniffed it. It smelled like dirt. Puzzled, he brought the string of things in front of Gu Mingming and asked, "The thing below you mentioned is this?" Gu Mingming was still in a daze until Elvis patted her head lightly. She then snapped back to reality. "Ah, yes, that's it. This is called potato. It's a divine dish that goes with everything. It's delicious and can help with hunger. Most importantly, it's easy to store. You can just pile it up in the cave and it won't go bad easily." Elvis looked at the fist-sized fruit skeptically. He casually plucked one off and threw it into his mouth without even washing it. He chewed on it with a few crunching sounds. Along with Elvis's twisted expression, Gu Mingming's laughter reverberated throughout the entire sea of flowers. "Ah! Hurry up and show your true form." "You're a husky, aren't you? How can a wolf be as stupid as you?" "Ah, I'm dying of laughter." Gu Mingming clutched her stomach and rolled around in laughter. Seeing her rare smile, Elvis suddenly felt that the strange taste in his mouth was not so unbearable anymore. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.